Some truths are too unsettling to speak aloud, and some events are too strange to fully comprehend. Across centuries, history has concealed moments that chill the soul, entire communities disappearing without a trace, cryptic messages left behind by unknown hands, and events that defy all explanation. What really happened in the shadows of our past? Which stories have been buried because reality itself seemed too terrifying? For the next 3 hours, we will journey through the most disturbing mysteries history has ever hidden. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Beneath the shifting sands of the Gobi Desert, where the wind sculpts vast dunes that seem to stretch endlessly toward the horizon, there are whispers of a city lost to time. Travelers and nomads have long spoken of strange formations buried beneath the sand, remnants of walls, towers, and streets that vanish beneath the unforgiving desert surface. The desert itself seems to guard its secrets, hiding what once may have been a thriving settlement in a silence that has lasted centuries. Archaeologists first began uncovering fragments of this lost civilization in the early 20th century. Pottery shards, carved stones, and inscriptions hint at a culture sophisticated beyond what might have been expected for a settlement in this harsh environment. Some of these artifacts, weathered by the relentless winds, bear the unmistakable traces of craftsmanship. Intricate designs depicting animals, celestial motifs, and serpentine forms that have earned the city its enigmatic nickname, the Dragon's Lair. Historical records from surrounding regions suggest that trade routes once passed near the edges of the Gobi Desert. Caravans traveling from what is now modern-day Palestine to distant parts of Asia may have skirted the fringes of this hidden city, though few maps mark its existence. References to a city beneath the sands appear sporadically in ancient texts, often dismissed as legend. Yet the consistency of certain details, a labyrinthine layout, the presence of underground chambers, and strange protective symbols cannot be entirely ignored. Intriguingly, some explorers report evidence of tunnels and caverns that stretch far beyond the known boundaries of the desert settlement. These subterranean passages appear to have been carved with a precision that seems almost impossible given the tools believed to be available at the time. Could these tunnels have served a defensive purpose, or were they constructed for ceremonial use? Some of the carvings suggest reverence for powerful dragon-like figures, creatures that may have been symbolic, or perhaps rooted in a mythos long forgotten. The mystery deepens with the occasional discovery of metallic objects that do not corrode as expected, even after centuries beneath the sand. Scholars remain divided on their origin. Were they produced by an unknown civilization with advanced metallurgical knowledge, or were they naturally preserved by the desert's unique environment? Local legends speak of guardians, spirits, or dragons that protected the treasures and knowledge buried within the city, a notion that modern science cannot verify but cannot entirely dismiss either. Adding to the enigma, satellite imaging and ground-penetrating radar have revealed anomalies beneath the dunes, geometric shapes and patterns that suggest the city extends far deeper than any excavation has yet uncovered. Some researchers argue these formations are purely natural, the product of shifting sands and geological processes. Others speculate that they may mark the remnants of vast subterranean halls, forgotten libraries, or ceremonial chambers, holding artifacts and knowledge that have been lost for millennia. Yet for all the theories and findings, the true purpose and nature of the Dragon's Lair remain unresolved. Was it a center of worship, a fortified refuge, or a city of commerce and learning? The evidence hints at complexity, sophistication, and perhaps a culture that revered both the tangible and the mystical. Every artifact uncovered, every tunnel explored, only deepens the sense of wonder and the realization that the desert still keeps much hidden from view. As the sun sets over the Gobi, casting long shadows across the dunes, one cannot help but wonder what lies beneath. What knowledge, what stories, and what secrets have been swallowed by the sands. The Dragon's Lair remains a testament to human ingenuity, mystery, and the enduring power of the unknown, a reminder that history is never truly finished, and some cities, like shadows, may always escape our full understanding. As the winds of the Gobi Desert settle and the last traces of the Dragon's Lair vanish beneath shifting dunes, we are reminded that some of history's most extraordinary mysteries are scattered across the world, waiting silently for those who dare to seek them. From the arid expanses of Asia, our journey takes us thousands of miles west, to the sun-scorched sands of Egypt, where another enigma has lingered for centuries, the fabled lost Golden City. Known in whispers as the City of Gold, this ancient metropolis promises stories that are both tantalizing and elusive, a civilization cloaked in both splendor and secrecy. The city, thought to have risen during the height of Egypt's 18th dynasty, lies buried somewhere along the banks of the Nile. Archaeologists have long speculated about its location, guided by fragments of papyrus, references in tomb inscriptions, and the faintest traces of ruins visible beneath the desert sands. Even in its absence, the city's presence can be felt. Ancient records speak of a settlement filled with monumental architecture, gilded walls, and streets lined with temples devoted to gods whose names echo through history: Amun, Ra, and the mysterious Osiris, whose influence extended far beyond life itself. Excavations in the early 20th century uncovered pottery shards, ceremonial objects, and inscriptions hinting at the city's grandeur. Yet alongside these tangible fragments, there are tales that have never fully yielded to explanation. Travelers and local inhabitants have long whispered of a curse associated with the city. Ancient scribes wrote of a guardian spirit that would strike down those who sought to plunder its treasures, a warning often dismissed by scholars as myth. Yet historical accounts sometimes tell a different story. Archaeologists, explorers, and even rulers who ventured too close often met untimely deaths or disappeared under circumstances never entirely clarified. What could explain such a pattern? Were these merely coincidences amplified by superstition, or was there a deeper truth hidden in the sands? Some suggest that the city's planners, aware of their civilization's prominence and wealth, may have constructed traps or protective measures to deter intruders. Others speculate that the curse exists not in the physical realm, but as a reflection of cultural memory, a warning embedded in collective consciousness, a reminder of human hubris and the sacredness of certain places. The lost Golden City was reputedly a hub of both commerce and religious devotion. Archaeological fragments indicate an advanced understanding of urban planning, water management, and metallurgy. Artisans worked gold and precious stones with a skill that still draws admiration today. Temples were aligned with the sun and stars in ways that hint at astronomical knowledge, perhaps used for both ritual and agricultural purposes. Some artifacts suggest trade with distant lands, including regions that correspond to what we now call Palestine, linking this city to a network of civilizations stretching across continents. And yet, much remains unexplained. In recent years, ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery have revealed anomalies beneath the sands, geometric patterns that do not occur naturally, long corridors that could indicate temples, administrative buildings, or even entire residential districts. Despite these tantalizing clues, excavation has been slow and cautious. The desert resists, and each discovery seems to deepen the mystery rather than resolve it. Fringe theories abound. Some researchers speculate that the city was built atop a previously unknown fault line, or that it contains chambers that are naturally preserved in a way that has kept delicate artifacts intact for millennia. Others suggest connections to legendary treasures described in Egyptian lore, or even lost knowledge of the ancients that has not survived in any other record. Some propose that the city itself was intentionally hidden or abandoned, its memory preserved in myth to protect it from the greed of man. Even the city's very location is a matter of debate. While recent excavations near Luxor have yielded promising finds, no definitive evidence has yet confirmed the city's boundaries or full extent. Could it lie beneath dunes yet untouched, or perhaps beneath later settlements that obscured its existence? What secrets might the tombs, temples, and workshops hold if we could finally uncover them? Every stone, every fragment, seems to ask more questions than it answers. And still, the allure of the lost Golden City persists. Its story is a reminder of the fragility of human achievement, the impermanence of even the most magnificent constructions, and the enduring power of mystery. It challenges us to consider the forces, both human and divine, that shape history, the ways in which knowledge can be preserved and lost, and the thin line between myth and reality. As we stand, metaphorically, on the threshold of this hidden world, we are left with the same questions that have captivated explorers and scholars for centuries. What treasures remain untouched beneath the sands? What stories, knowledge, and artifacts lie silent, awaiting discovery? And if such wonders were to be revealed, how might they reshape our understanding of the past and our sense of human potential in the ancient world? In the shadow of the city's mysteries, we are reminded that some secrets are not meant to be rushed, that history sometimes guards its most extraordinary truths with patience and care. The lost Golden City remains buried, and perhaps that is precisely what gives it its enduring power, the promise of discovery, tempered by the silence of the desert. From the sun-scorched sands of Egypt, our journey turns northward to the rugged landscapes of southeastern Spain, where remnants of an ancient civilization cling to hilltops and valleys. Among these, La Bastida rises subtly yet purposefully, its stones weathered by millennia of wind and rain. The settlement perches atop a modest elevation, overlooking fertile plains that must have once nourished a thriving community. Even today, the view from its terraces is commanding, a patchwork of fields, rivers, and distant mountains stretching toward the horizon, as if nature itself conspired to offer both sustenance and protection to those who built here long ago. La Bastida is more than a collection of stones. It is a testament to human ingenuity, particularly in defense. Archaeologists have uncovered walls, carefully constructed with large, irregular stones, that zigzag across the ridge, enclosing the settlement in a way that suggests both strategy and foresight. Some walls rise higher than 5 meters, their foundations embedded firmly into the natural contours of the hill. Towers and bastions, positioned at intervals, once allowed guards to observe approaching travelers from afar. The defensive intent is clear. This was a community keenly aware of threats, yet the nature of those threats remains a matter of speculation. Excavations reveal a complex urban layout within these fortifications. Narrow streets wind between clusters of stone buildings, some featuring multiple levels. Storage facilities, likely used for grains, olive oil, and other essentials, indicate a society prepared not only for daily life, but for long periods of siege. Yet there are anomalies. Certain chambers show signs of abrupt abandonment, broken pottery, tools left in place, and in one case, a hearth still containing the remnants of a meal. Why were these people forced to leave, and what urgency caused them to depart without clearing their homes? The evidence hints at a sudden, perhaps violent disruption, but the specifics remain unknown. Historical analysis places La Bastida in the Late Bronze Age, roughly between 2200 and 1500 BC. Communities across the region were experimenting with fortifications, yet La Bastida's defensive structures stand out for their sophistication. Archaeologists have noted that the walls were not built solely for protection against invaders. They appear to have been designed to channel movement, controlling access points in a manner that suggests both military strategy and social organization. Could this indicate a central authority with a well-defined hierarchy, capable of mobilizing labor and resources on an unprecedented scale? Intriguingly, some of the fortifications reveal unusual architectural choices. Certain corners are reinforced with thick stone foundations that suggest repeated reinforcement over time, while other sections contain embedded stone projections, possibly intended to hold wooden palisades or defensive platforms. Artifacts recovered near these structures include weapons, bronze daggers, spearheads, and arrow tips, though their distribution is inconsistent. Were these objects the tools of everyday defense, ceremonial offerings, or signs of a sudden skirmish? The evidence is tantalizing yet incomplete, leaving ample room for interpretation. Fringe theories have emerged alongside mainstream archaeological analysis. Some scholars speculate that La Bastida may have functioned not only as a defensive settlement, but also as a hub of regional power, a place where trade, governance, and ritual converged. Others suggest that certain underground chambers, partially unearthed, might conceal hidden treasures or sacred spaces. Recent remote sensing studies have revealed anomalies beneath the hill's surface, voids and tunnels that could indicate long-forgotten storage areas or escape routes. Were these intentionally hidden, and if so, from whom were they meant to conceal the city's inhabitants? Even the settlement's eventual decline carries a hint of mystery. Evidence suggests that La Bastida was abandoned gradually, with layers of ash and debris hinting at possible conflict or environmental stress. Some researchers propose that shifts in climate, droughts, or soil degradation forced the community to seek more hospitable regions. Others point to the arrival of neighboring groups, whose presence may have disrupted local stability. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the careful preservation of certain structures or the abruptness evident in particular areas. The settlement seems to have vanished in a manner both deliberate and incomplete, leaving only fragments of its story behind. La Bastida also offers glimpses into cultural and spiritual life. Decorative motifs on pottery, communal hearths, and possible altars suggest that daily existence was intertwined with ritual practice, perhaps invoking protection over both the living and the city itself. Could the fortifications have been as much spiritual as practical, a manifestation of belief in safeguarding the community not only from human foes, but from forces unseen? If so, these walls may have carried a significance beyond their physical purpose, a silent dialogue between people and the divine, encoded in stone and earth. Standing amid the remnants of La Bastida today, one cannot help but feel the echoes of lives lived in vigilance, ingenuity, and uncertainty. The defensive walls, partially reconstructed and partially eroded, convey both the skill and the vulnerability of a civilization that understood danger, yet could never fully control it. What secrets remain buried beneath these fortifications? How much of the city's daily life, its governance, and its rituals are forever lost to time? And perhaps most intriguingly, what stories have yet to emerge from the shadows of this carefully constructed but ultimately abandoned stronghold? La Bastida challenges us to consider the complexity of human societies long before written records. It reminds us that fortifications are not merely physical barriers, but vessels of memory, belief, and culture. Even now, after centuries of excavation and study, the settlement continues to guard its most intimate secrets, inviting us to ponder the lives of those who built, defended, and eventually left this place behind. From the rugged hills of southeastern Spain, where La Bastida's walls once protected its inhabitants, our journey moves northward to the rolling countryside of Somerset, England, where time itself seems to have slowed. Amid fields and pastures, partially hidden beneath the soft rise of a gentle hill, lies stony Littleton Barrow, a structure at once humble in appearance yet monumental in human ambition. From afar, it appears as a simple mound of earth and stone, but closer inspection reveals a carefully constructed passage tomb, its very design hinting at knowledge and purpose that has endured for millennia. The barrow stretches over 30 meters in length, its narrow stone chambers meticulously aligned along a central passage, leading to small burial compartments at the heart of the mound. Large limestone slabs, some weathered and cracked, form the walls and roof of the internal chambers, creating spaces that, even today, carry a sense of solemnity and reverence. It is a structure built to last, and its survival offers a rare glimpse into the practices of communities living over 5,500 years ago in the early Neolithic period. Archaeological excavations, beginning in the 19th century and continuing intermittently into the 20th, have revealed human remains within the chambers, carefully positioned, often accompanied by fragments of pottery and flint tools. Yet despite the presence of these artifacts, much about Stony Littleton remains mysterious. How did these people, with limited technology, transport and raise massive stones weighing hundreds of kilograms? And why did they invest such effort into constructing burial sites in a precise alignment, facing particular directions, with chambers that allow light to penetrate in striking ways during solstices and equinoxes? Some researchers argue that the barrow was a communal resting place, a sacred space connecting the living with their ancestors. Others propose that it functioned as a ceremonial site, where rituals surrounding life, death, and the natural cycles of the earth were enacted. Yet questions persist. Certain chambers seem deliberately narrow, almost claustrophobic, suggesting that the act of entering them may have had symbolic significance, perhaps a rite of passage, a spiritual journey, or a moment of reflection designed to confront one with mortality itself. What makes Stony Littleton particularly intriguing is the precision of its construction. The passage and chambers are oriented along an axis that aligns with the midwinter sunrise, hinting at astronomical awareness and an understanding of celestial cycles. How did these early communities observe and integrate such knowledge into their architecture? Did they see the rising sun as a symbol of renewal, of life persisting beyond death? Or was there a deeper, now lost cosmology that guided their design choices? Fringe theories have emerged alongside more conventional explanations. Some suggest that long barrows like Stony Littleton may have served as repositories of ancient knowledge, encoding astronomical, agricultural, or even spiritual insights in their structure. Others speculate that the barrow's alignment and careful construction indicate influence from distant cultures, raising questions about the movement and interactions of early European societies. Could knowledge have traveled farther and faster than we currently understand? Or were these communities drawing independently upon observation, intuition, and ritualized experience? Excavation reports also hint at anomalies. In some chambers, the soil contains traces of pigments or organic compounds whose purposes are not fully understood. Were they part of ceremonial practice, intended to honor the dead, or perhaps used in ways that remain invisible to modern eyes? Even the arrangement of human remains suggests patterns that may reflect hierarchy, kinship, or ritualized care. But the logic behind these patterns eludes full interpretation. The more researchers uncover, the more the barrow seems to resist complete understanding. Stony Littleton. Long Barrow stands not only as a monument to the dead, but as a challenge to the living, to decipher the intentions of people who left no written records, who spoke through stone, earth, and placement rather than text. Every stone slab, every narrow corridor, every carefully carved chamber is a question posed across millennia. What did these builders hope to preserve, and what did they fear might be lost? How much knowledge has been intentionally encoded, and how much has simply survived by chance? Walking along the contours of the mound today, it is impossible not to feel a sense of connection with the people who labored here. The barrow's presence is subtle yet commanding, a reminder that human curiosity, devotion, and ingenuity existed long before kingdoms, cities, or written histories dominated the landscape. And yet, despite centuries of study, Stony Littleton retains its secrets, silently prompting the observer to wonder, what exactly did these early people understand about life, death, and the cosmos? What knowledge or beliefs remain buried alongside the bodies within the chambers, awaiting rediscovery. As the sun dips low over the Somerset Hills, casting long shadows across the field, one can almost hear echoes of ancient footsteps, ritual chants, or whispered prayers carried across time. Stony Littleton Long Barrow, like La Bastida before it, reminds us that history is rarely fully revealed, that even the most seemingly simple structures may conceal layers of meaning, practice, and mystery. Perhaps the barrow will eventually yield its final secrets, or perhaps, like the civilizations of the past, it will remain a testament to human ingenuity, devotion, and the enduring allure of the unknown. In the quiet that follows, we are left to wonder, what else might these early builders have known? What stories, insights, and truths have been deliberately or accidentally left for us to uncover? And in contemplating this ancient structure, are we glimpsing the faint outline of a world far richer, more complex, and more mysterious than we can yet imagine? From the rolling hills and pastoral fields of Somerset, where stony Littleton Long Barrow still whispers of ancient lives and ritual observances, our journey carries us westward to the rugged, windswept landscapes of County Sligo in Ireland. Here, atop limestone ridges that pierce the horizon, lies Carrowkeel Megalithic Cemetery, a vast necropolis of Neolithic passage tombs that, even today, exude an aura of mystery and solemnity. Against the backdrop of mist-shrouded hills and sparse vegetation, the tombs appear almost suspended between earth and sky, their angular stones jutting sharply from the ground, as though reaching for something beyond human comprehension. Carrowkeel is not a single tomb, but a sprawling complex. More than 30 passage graves scattered across multiple ridges, each with its own unique configuration of stones. From the outside, the mounds resemble gentle rises of earth, but within, narrow passages lead to central chambers, often roofed with massive stone slabs arranged with painstaking precision. The largest of these chambers can reach lengths of over 6 meters, their interiors adorned with carved motifs, spirals, chevrons, and cup marks that hint at symbolic or ceremonial significance. It is a place that demands quiet contemplation, as if the weight of thousands of years presses upon every visitor who steps within its confines. Archaeological studies date Carrowkeel to approximately 3,700 to 2,900 BC, placing it firmly within the Neolithic period, when communities across Ireland were experimenting with collective burial practices and monumental architecture. Human remains recovered from the tombs show evidence of careful placement and repeated interment, indicating a sustained and deliberate effort to honor the dead. Yet, for all the study, questions abound. What motivated these early communities to build on such remote ridges, exposed to harsh winds and winter storms? Was it purely practical, protection from floods or intruders, or did the location carry spiritual or astronomical significance yet to be fully understood? Some scholars point to the tomb's alignment, noting that certain passageways appear to correspond with solstices and seasonal sunrises. Could these alignments indicate an early understanding of the cosmos, linking life, death, and the cycles of nature in ways we are only beginning to grasp? Or do they reflect a deeper symbolic intention, a connection to ancestors, deities, or forces unseen? Within the central chambers, the very air seems charged with a quiet energy, a stillness that draws the imagination to questions of ritual, reverence, and the intersection of human mortality with the eternal rhythms of the natural world. Artifacts found within Carrowkeel provide further insight, yet deepen the mystery. Pottery fragments, polished stone tools, and beads suggest a community invested not only in survival but in expression, artistry, and possibly trade. Traces of ochre hint at ceremonial use, perhaps for marking the dead or for ritualistic purposes within the chambers themselves. Yet the absence of certain expected items, personal possessions, everyday utensils, raises questions. Were these tombs reserved exclusively for select individuals? Was there a hierarchy or social stratification that dictated who could be buried here, and how might that reflect the broader structure of Neolithic life? Fringe theories have emerged alongside these conventional interpretations. Some suggest that Carrowkeel may have functioned as more than a cemetery, serving as a repository of ancient knowledge or as a spiritual center connecting disparate communities. Others propose that the placement of the tombs on high ridges was intended to guide the living, serving as markers visible from afar, perhaps guiding travelers or signaling territorial boundaries. Recent geophysical surveys have also revealed voids and anomalies beneath some mounds, subterranean chambers or hidden passageways that remain largely unexplored. Could these secret spaces contain artifacts, knowledge, or remnants of practices that modern archaeology has yet to uncover? Even the human remains themselves raise questions that science alone cannot fully answer. Analysis of bones reveals evidence of disease, diet, and trauma, hinting at lives both ordinary and extraordinary, yet there are patterns that defy easy explanation. Certain individuals appear to have been interred with particular care, while others show signs of secondary burial or rearrangement long after death. What social or spiritual codes guided these decisions? And to what extent did belief, ritual, or even fear shape the architecture of the tombs themselves? Standing among the stones of Carrowkeel today, one cannot ignore the impression of deliberate intention, the sense that every mound, every slab, and every passage carries layers of meaning, much of which has been lost to time. The tombs offer not only a connection to Neolithic life, but a reflection of enduring human questions. How do we honor the dead? How do we confront mortality? How do we leave a mark upon the world, knowing that centuries or even millennia will pass before our intentions are fully understood? Carrowkeel challenges us to reconcile the tangible with the intangible, the evidence with the unknown. It reminds us that monuments are more than stone and earth. They are vessels of memory, ritual, and imagination. Even after centuries of excavation and study, the cemetery guards its most intimate secrets, inviting us to consider the complexity of early human society, the depth of ritual practice, and the subtle interplay between life, death, and the cosmos. As the wind sweeps across the ridges, carrying whispers from ancient times, we are left to wonder, what stories remain hidden beneath the stones? What knowledge, beliefs, and experiences have yet to emerge from the shadows of Carrowkeel? And what can these silent mounds teach us, not only about the past, but about the human need to remember, to honor, and to seek connection with something greater than ourselves? From the misted ridges of Carrowkeel, where the Neolithic dead lay in stone chambers that have stood for over 5 millennia, our journey now leads us far to the south, across oceans and continents, to the rugged valleys of Oaxaca in Mexico. Here, perched on a rocky promontory overlooking the fertile Tlacolula Valley, stands Yagul, a site whose stone structures speak of both governance and observation, of human ingenuity intertwined with the cosmos. Among its plazas, pyramids, and residential compounds lies one of the most intriguing features, what scholars now identify as an ancient observatory, a place where the movements of the sun, moon, and stars were not only observed, but woven into the very rhythm of life. The observatory at Yagul is subtle at first glance. Unlike the towering pyramids or ceremonial platforms, its markers are integrated into the landscape. Carefully aligned walls, terraces, and carved stone features that frame celestial events with startling precision. From the vantage point of its highest terrace, the valley spreads below like a living map, a canvas upon which the rhythms of nature could be recorded, predicted, and interpreted. It is a place where the boundary between human endeavor and cosmic observation seems almost imperceptible, where the earth itself becomes a measuring instrument for those who sought to understand the heavens. Archaeological studies suggest that Yagul flourished during the late Classic period, roughly between 600 and 900 AD. The city's residents demonstrated remarkable knowledge of astronomy, likely using the observatory to guide agricultural cycles, religious ceremonies, and social planning. Yet even with modern technology, the full sophistication of the site remains elusive. How did the inhabitants calculate solstices and equinoxes with such precision? How were the alignments determined and maintained over generations? And what symbolic or ritual significance might these observations have held beyond their practical applications? Some markers, aligned with specific mountain peaks or distant horizon points, seem intentionally designed to track the rising and setting of the sun during key moments in the agricultural calendar. Other stones appear to correspond with lunar cycles or the movements of Venus, a celestial body that held deep importance in Mesoamerican cosmology. Was this observatory purely practical, a tool to optimize planting and harvesting, or did it serve a dual purpose as a sacred space, connecting human activity with divine cycles in a way we are only beginning to understand? Artifacts and structural remnants at Yagul offer tantalizing clues. Fragments of pottery, carved stone, and evidence of ritual offerings suggest that celestial observation was inseparable from ceremonial life. Perhaps priests or astronomer priests ascended the terraces at dawn, aligning their observations with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, while communities gathered below to witness the unfolding of sacred events. Could the observatory have been a stage where the human and divine intersected, a tangible manifestation of cosmology encoded in stone and earth? Fringe theories have arisen alongside scholarly interpretations. Some propose that Yagul's observatory may have been part of a network of sites designed to map the heavens, an ancient analog to modern scientific infrastructure. Others speculate that the precision of alignments indicates knowledge transmitted across distant regions, suggesting contact or shared understanding with other Mesoamerican cultures. Recent studies using 3D modeling and archaeoastronomical software have revealed potential correlations between certain sightlines and rare celestial events, such as eclipses or planetary alignments. Yet these remain hypotheses, illuminating the possibilities without resolving the mystery. The very construction of the observatory raises additional questions. Terraces and walls are built from massive stones, carefully leveled and positioned to create precise sight lines across the valley. Were these alignments determined by trial and error over decades, or were they the product of a systematic method now lost to time? The meticulous integration of architecture with landscape suggests deliberate planning on a scale that hints at a sophisticated understanding of both geology and astronomy. How much of this knowledge has been preserved in oral traditions or lost entirely, buried beneath centuries of social upheaval and environmental change? Even today, the site carries an intangible sense of anticipation. Standing on the terrace at sunset, watching the sun sink behind the distant mountains, one can sense the deliberate interplay of light and shadow, the alignment of stones with the horizon, and the quiet testimony of generations who sought to measure the heavens. The observatory is not merely an architectural artifact. It is a reflection of humanity's persistent desire to understand its place in the cosmos, to find order in the vastness of the sky, and to leave a mark upon the world that transcends the fleeting span of individual lives. Yagul challenges us to consider the broader implications of ancient observation. It reminds us that even in periods we might dismiss as primitive, human beings engaged in systematic study, combined science with ritual, and sought answers to questions that remain profoundly relevant today. Could there be knowledge encoded in these stones that we have yet to decipher? Could patterns of celestial movement, agricultural insight, or spiritual understanding lie hidden in plain sight, awaiting the careful eye of the observer? As the wind stirs across the rocky terraces and the sun dips below the horizon, Yagul stands as a testament to the intricate relationship between humanity and the cosmos, a site where earth, stone, and sky converge in deliberate harmony. Even with centuries of study, it guards its deepest secrets, inviting us to contemplate not only what the ancients knew, but also what mysteries still remain. What events, calculations, or insights might have been recorded here that we have yet to recognize? And as we gaze at the same stars they observed so long ago, how much closer are we to understanding the intentions of those who once sought to map the heavens with nothing more than stone, vision, and reverence? From the sunlit terraces of Yagul, where generations of observers charted the movements of celestial bodies, we travel further into the highlands of South America to the sacred city of Cusco in present-day Peru. There, amidst winding streets and ancient stone foundations, rises the Temple of the Sun, or Khirokitia, a structure whose stones still glisten faintly, reflecting the golden hue of the sun that the Incas revered above all other forces. The temple sits at the very heart of the city, commanding not only attention, but reverence. Even today, the site carries an aura of power, a sense that it once bridged the terrestrial and the divine, the human and the cosmic, in ways that continue to confound scholars and visitors alike. The exterior of the temple is deceptive in its simplicity. To the untrained eye, Khirokitia appears as a series of walls and terraces, constructed with the hallmark precision of Inca masonry, stones fitted so perfectly that even a blade cannot slide between them. But as one steps closer, the details emerge. Massive granite blocks, polished and interlocked without mortar, forming walls that have withstood centuries of earthquakes. In its prime, the walls were coated in sheets of gold, catching the sunlight in a radiant display that must have been both awe-inspiring and spiritually overwhelming. It is said that during the solstices, the sun's rays would illuminate specific chambers and altars, a deliberate interaction between the temple's architecture and the natural world, designed to reflect the Incas' intricate understanding of astronomy and ritual. Historical records, both Inca and Spanish, describe Khirokitia as a central hub for worship, governance, and astronomical observation. Its chambers housed sacred objects, including golden representations of the sun and various deities, while adjacent temples and plazas facilitated complex ceremonies tied to the solar calendar. The Incas revered the sun as Inti, a deity central to creation, agriculture, and societal cohesion. Yet for all the documentation, much remains unexplained. How did Inca engineers achieve such architectural precision with tools that, by modern standards, seem rudimentary? How was the knowledge of solar cycles, solstices, and equinoxes encoded into the very orientation and layout of the temple? Archaeological exploration has revealed that the temple's foundations are far older than previously thought. Some studies suggest that the site was constructed atop an earlier sacred location, possibly by civilizations predating the Incas, whose practices and knowledge may have been absorbed, adapted, and elevated into the solar cult of Khirokitia. Could it be that the Incas were stewards of a far older, more mysterious tradition, preserving astronomical and spiritual insights that reach back centuries, or even millennia, beyond their own culture? If so, what knowledge might have been transmitted, intentionally or inadvertently, through generations of builders and priests? The alignment of the temple and its associated structures hints at a sophisticated integration of astronomy, architecture, and ritual. The main walls of Khirokitia are oriented to track the rising and setting sun during solstices, with auxiliary chambers marking lunar cycles and the apparent motion of Venus. Some researchers propose that these alignments allowed priests to predict seasonal changes critical to agriculture, orchestrate festivals at precise celestial moments, and reinforce the ideological power of the Inca elite. Others suggest that the temple functioned as a symbolic microcosm of the cosmos itself, a sacred reflection of the heavens brought to earth, a place where the movements of stars and planets were mirrored in the movement of ritual and governance. Yet there remain puzzles that resist explanation. Beneath the polished granite and golden facades, earlier layers of construction hint at subterranean spaces and hidden chambers. Spanish chroniclers alluded to secret caches of gold and sacred objects, yet much of what they documented is either lost or deliberately obscured. Could hidden passages, ritual artifacts, or inscriptions remain buried, waiting for modern archaeologists to uncover them? And what stories might these lost treasures tell, not merely of wealth, but of beliefs, power, and the cosmological understanding of a civilization that saw the sun as the axis of the universe? Even the golden walls themselves provoke reflection. While much of the temple's gilding was looted or melted during the Spanish conquest, the very idea of covering entire walls in gold speaks to the profound reverence the Incas had for sunlight. Gold was not merely wealth, but a manifestation of Inti, a sacred medium that transformed architecture into theology. How did this symbolic material influence ritual practice? Were the priests and rulers attempting to create a space where the divine was not merely represented, but made tangible, almost tactile, to those who entered the temple? Fringe theories surrounding Khirokitia add another layer of intrigue. Some suggest that the temple was part of a broader network of sacred observatories across the Andes, connecting various Inca sites into a coherent, astronomical map of the heavens. Others speculate that the Incas possessed practical astronomical knowledge that allowed them to predict eclipses, solstices, or even meteorological events with surprising accuracy. Could Khirokitia have functioned as a center for both ritual and science, merging observation with spiritual significance in a manner that still challenges modern understanding? Walking through the temple today, amidst the surviving walls and terraces, the sense of deliberate intention is palpable. Each stone, each alignment, and each remaining fragment of gold seems to convey purpose and design, speaking across centuries to observers willing to look and reflect. It is not merely a building, but a manifestation of belief, knowledge, and human aspiration, an attempt to harmonize human life with the movements of the sun, the cycles of nature, and the immensity of the cosmos itself. Khirokitia invites us to ponder deeper questions. What knowledge did the Incas inherit from their predecessors, and what insights have been lost to time, conquest, or decay? How did they merge architecture, astronomy, and spirituality into a single, coherent expression of culture and power? And even now, as modern scholars and visitors study the site, what secrets might remain hidden, embedded in the stone, in subterranean spaces, or in alignments that are subtle, precise, and only perceptible under particular celestial conditions? As the afternoon sun casts its final light over Cusco, the golden remnants of Khirokitia glint faintly in the fading rays. The Temple of the Sun endures not merely as a relic of the past, but as a testament to human curiosity, ingenuity, and devotion. It reminds us that even civilizations long gone sought to understand their place in the universe, to honor forces beyond their control, and to encode their beliefs and knowledge in ways that endure across time. What remains hidden within these sacred walls? What wisdom, insight, or mystery has yet to be fully revealed? And as we continue to explore, can we ever truly grasp the full measure of what the Temple of the Sun represents, both to the people who built it and to those who seek its secrets today? From the sun-drenched terraces of Cusco, where the Incas once aligned their temples with the path of the sun, our exploration now turns to the distant and largely forgotten shores of southwestern Iberia. Here, along the Guadalquivir River and the marshy estuaries of modern-day Andalusia, there thrived a civilization that remains shrouded in both legend and fragmentary historical record: Tartessos. For centuries, it has been whispered about in Greek and Roman texts as a wealthy, advanced society, a place of rivers of silver and gold, sophisticated metallurgy, and maritime trade that connected the far reaches of the ancient world. Yet its precise location, social structure, and ultimate fate remain a mystery that has fascinated historians and archaeologists alike. The very landscape of Tartessos evokes a sense of wonder. Fertile riverbanks give way to wetlands, hidden lagoons, and winding channels that would have allowed ancient merchants to navigate the region with ease. Hills and plains, dotted with traces of settlements, suggest an agricultural and urban sophistication that belies the scant material evidence recovered to date. Ancient accounts, including references by Herodotus and Strabo, describe Tartessos as a hub of mineral wealth and trade, a place where the treasures of the Iberian Peninsula, copper, silver, and gold, were refined and transported to Mediterranean markets. Yet archaeological confirmation has proven elusive. Are the ruins submerged under centuries of sediment, buried beneath modern towns, or simply lost to time? Scholars have traced Tartessos to at least the first millennium BC, perhaps flourishing from around 1200 BC to the early centuries of the Common Era. The civilization appears to have been a nexus between indigenous Iberian cultures and Mediterranean powers, including the Phoenicians and later Carthaginians. Trade networks may have extended across the Atlantic coast and into North Africa, suggesting an economy both complex and far-reaching. Inscriptions and artifacts hint at a society capable of sophisticated metallurgy, urban planning, and perhaps even written record. Yet the absence of a complete, excavated city leaves us to piece together their story from fragments, from mentions in foreign accounts, and from tantalizing clues hidden in the landscape. One of the most compelling aspects of Tartessos is the intersection of fact and legend. Classical authors describe a king named Argantonios, said to have ruled for over a century, a figure whose longevity and wisdom elevate him almost to myth. Is this a hyperbolic account, or does it preserve a memory of rulers who maintained dynasties over long spans of time? References to enormous wealth, sacred sanctuaries, and sophisticated rituals suggest a civilization that not only prospered materially, but invested in spiritual and cultural life. Could Tartessos have been a center for both commerce and esoteric knowledge, its influence extending far beyond what the material record can confirm? The physical remnants of Tartessos, metal tools, jewelry, pottery, and occasional architectural fragments, offer both clues and contradictions. Artifacts suggest advanced metallurgical techniques, yet their distribution is patchy, leaving scholars to speculate about the scale of production and the organization of labor. Some sites, such as Cancho Roano and other Phoenician-influenced settlements nearby, hint at complex interactions between Tartessos and external civilizations, raising questions about how cultural exchange influenced social, technological, and religious development. Was Tartessos a fully independent culture, or a hybrid society shaped by constant contact with Mediterranean traders? Fringe theories add another layer of intrigue. Some researchers have proposed that Tartessos may correspond to the biblical Tarshish, described as a distant land of silver and exotic goods, trading with ancient Palestine and beyond. Could these connections hint at a civilization of unparalleled reach, whose ships and merchants carried not only metals but ideas, technologies, and religious practices across the ancient world? Others speculate that Tartessos was deliberately hidden in legends because of its advanced knowledge or strategic significance, a civilization whose ultimate disappearance was as dramatic as it was mysterious, lost to flood, conquest, or gradual decline, leaving only faint traces for modern observers to decipher. The riverbanks themselves seem to guard secrets. Geophysical surveys and satellite imaging suggest that some settlements may now lie beneath layers of sediment deposited over centuries of flooding. Could entire neighborhoods, temples, or ceremonial sites remain buried, waiting for excavation to reveal streets, public spaces, or workshops that illuminate the social and political fabric of the civilization? Even more intriguing are references to sacred sites or treasuries, perhaps hidden to protect them from foreign invaders or natural disasters. What artifacts, inscriptions, or monumental architecture might still be concealed, offering insight into the beliefs, rituals, and daily lives of a people who have otherwise vanished from history. Cultural and linguistic traces further deepen the mystery. Tartessian inscriptions, one of the earliest known forms of written language in the Iberian Peninsula, remain only partially deciphered, hinting at administrative systems, religious practices, or historical narratives now lost. Could these inscriptions reveal a sophisticated society that not only traded in material wealth, but also cultivated literacy, record-keeping, and codified law? Or were these symbols primarily ritualistic, preserving spiritual knowledge in ways we have yet to understand? Standing today along the Guadalquivir, one can imagine Tartessos as a vibrant, bustling civilization. Merchants navigating the waterways with goods of silver and tin, artisans crafting jewelry of intricate design, priests performing rites beneath sacred altars, and kings or governors issuing decrees that echoed across the region. And yet, as the waters lap against the banks and reeds sway in the wind, the silence of the lost city is almost palpable. It is a civilization known through hints and shadows, reconstructed from fragments, foreign accounts, and educated conjecture. Tartessos invites reflection not only on what we know, but also on what we do not. Could its disappearance be attributed to environmental changes, shifting river courses, or natural disasters? Or might human conflict, conquest, or assimilation have erased its presence, leaving only the faintest echoes in myth, trade networks, and the occasional artifact? And most provocatively, could the civilization have preserved knowledge or cultural achievements now entirely lost to time? Insights into metallurgy, astronomy, navigation, or governance that rivaled contemporary Mediterranean powers? As the sun sets over the Iberian wetlands, casting long shadows across the river and its hidden channels, Tartessos stands as a testament to both human achievement and the elusiveness of history. Its remnants provoke wonder, inviting us to imagine a city of gold, commerce, and ritual, a civilization that once connected rivers, mountains, and seas in a network of culture and trade, yet remains tantalizingly just out of reach. What secrets lie buried beneath the sediment and the sands of time? And as we search for answers, can we hope to understand the full magnitude of a civilization that has survived only in fragments, stories, and the enduring allure of mystery? From the mist-laden banks of the Guadalquivir, where Tartessos once thrived as a center of wealth and trade, our journey now leads us to the western Iberian coast, near the present-day town of Torres Vedras in Portugal. Here, perched atop a commanding hill, lies the Zambujal fortified complex, an extraordinary settlement whose carefully constructed walls and towers evoke both admiration and curiosity. Unlike the more celebrated ruins of classical civilizations, Zambujal's remnants speak quietly, almost humbly, yet their design and scale suggest a society of remarkable organization and strategic insight. Even today, standing amidst its stone terraces and defensive embankments, one can sense that this site was built with both purpose and foresight, a place where protection, community, and perhaps ritual intersected in ways we are only beginning to understand. The site is defined by its imposing fortifications. Massive stone walls rise in irregular yet purposeful alignment, forming concentric enclosures that once protected the heart of the settlement. Excavations reveal complex gateways, towers, and internal divisions, suggesting not merely a defensive function, but also a carefully planned civic structure. From its elevated vantage point, Zambujal overlooks rolling plains and river valleys, offering both a strategic military perspective and a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. One can imagine sentinels watching for distant movement, a town bustling with trade, and families living within fortified walls, each stone laid with care to endure time, weather, and potential conflict. Archaeological research places Zambujal within the Late Bronze Age, approximately 1300 to 700 BC, a period of significant social and technological transformation in the western Iberian Peninsula. The inhabitants mastered metallurgy, producing copper and bronze implements that facilitated both agriculture and warfare. Pottery, ornaments, and domestic tools found at the site suggest a thriving settlement with specialized craftspeople, communal organization, and far-reaching trade connections. Yet, as much as is known about daily life, the deeper significance of Zambujal remains elusive. What compelled its builders to create such formidable fortifications? Were they responding to real threats, or was the very act of fortifying the settlement also symbolic, a declaration of power and permanence to outsiders and future generations alike? The design of Zambujal raises further questions. Its walls are not merely functional. They reflect careful geometric planning, alignment with natural topography, and an understanding of defensive strategy that rivals more famous contemporary sites. Some researchers suggest that these features indicate not only a society concerned with protection, but also one capable of complex planning and centralized leadership. How did the inhabitants coordinate labor, resources, and knowledge to construct such formidable enclosures? Could there have been specialized classes of architects, engineers, or leaders whose expertise was lost to history, but whose legacy endures in stone? Artifacts uncovered within Zambujal provide glimpses into the spiritual and social life of its people. Bronze tools and weapons hint at martial activity, while decorative items and ceramics suggest rituals, domestic practices, and aesthetic appreciation. Some scholars propose that particular enclosures may have served ceremonial purposes, perhaps aligned with celestial events or seasonal cycles, echoing patterns found in other ancient settlements across Iberia and the Mediterranean. Could Zambujal have combined the practicalities of defense and daily life with the spiritual concerns of its inhabitants, a place where survival and devotion were inseparable? The relationship between Zambujal and nearby cultures adds another layer of intrigue. Evidence of trade, particularly in metal resources and crafted goods, indicates connections with Atlantic coastal networks and possibly with Mediterranean societies, including Tartessos to the south. Such exchanges would have brought not only wealth but also ideas, technologies, and cultural influences. Did Zambujal's builders intentionally integrate external knowledge into their fortifications and urban planning? And if so, how much of the settlement's sophistication reflects local innovation versus borrowed expertise from distant cultures? Fringe theories surrounding Zambujal enhance its enigmatic appeal. Some historians have speculated that the complex functioned as more than a mere settlement or fortress, suggesting roles as a regional administrative center, a religious hub, or even a repository of arcane knowledge. Could certain stone alignments correspond to celestial events, marking solstices, equinoxes, or lunar cycles as seen in other Bronze Age sites? Are there hidden chambers or constructions yet undiscovered beneath the fortified terraces, containing evidence of ritual practice or social hierarchies? While these ideas remain speculative, they underscore the depth of mystery that Zambujal continues to present. Environmental factors also invite consideration. The settlement's location atop a hill not only provided strategic advantage, but may have reflected broader environmental knowledge. Elevated positions are less susceptible to flooding, offer natural defense, and allow observation of surrounding agricultural lands and trade routes. Could the site have also functioned as a monitoring station for seasonal changes, river levels, or the movements of people and goods? And what does this imply about the sophistication of the society that maintained it over centuries, particularly in a period often perceived as rudimentary compared to classical civilizations? The disappearance of Zambujal as a significant cultural center is another enigma. By the end of the Bronze Age, the settlement was largely abandoned, yet the reasons remain uncertain. Was it environmental stress, such as shifting river courses or resource depletion? Did external threats, raids, warfare, or migration play a decisive role? Or was it a combination of factors that gradually led the inhabitants to relocate, leaving behind only their stone fortifications as testimony to their once thriving community? The silence of the site challenges us, prompting reflection on the fragility of civilizations and the forces, both natural and human, that shape history. Walking among the ruins today, the sense of deliberate human endeavor is palpable. Each wall, terrace, and gateway conveys intent, resilience, and perhaps a measure of pride in craftsmanship. Yet, for all its solidity, Zambujal invites humility. We are confronted with the limits of our knowledge, with the traces of a people whose lives, beliefs, and ambitions are only partially revealed. What remains unseen beneath the terraces, within the earth, or behind walls long worn by time? What insights might the careful study of this site offer about Bronze Age societies in Iberia, their connections to broader Mediterranean networks, or their understanding of landscape, defense, and social cohesion? Zambujal continues to challenge our perceptions. It is neither a grand metropolis nor a simple village, yet its complexity and strategic brilliance demand recognition. The fortifications speak not only of security, but of identity, control, and perhaps the human need to assert permanence in a world of uncertainty. What secrets of governance, warfare, or ritual are embedded in its stones? Could undiscovered chambers or inscriptions rewrite our understanding of Bronze Age Iberia? And as we study the site with modern technology, geophysical imaging, 3D reconstruction, and archaeological excavation, what further mysteries will emerge from the sediment, revealing a civilization both sophisticated and elusive, whose story remains tantalizingly incomplete? As the sun sets over the western hills of Portugal, casting shadows across Zambujal's stone walls, one cannot help but feel a profound connection to the builders who once walked these terraces. Their knowledge, ingenuity, and vision endure in the landscape, silently inviting us to look closer, question further, and imagine the full scope of a civilization that, though partially lost, continues to speak across the millennia. What remains hidden, and what might we yet discover? In the quiet of the ruins, these questions linger, reminding us that history is as much about mystery as it is about fact, and that some answers may still be waiting beneath our feet. From the fortified terraces of Zambujal, where stone walls speak of strategy and survival, our journey now stretches across the Atlantic to the rugged Andean highlands of southern Peru, into a region shrouded by mist, legend, and the echoes of a vanished civilization. Here, among steep valleys and cloud-draped mountains, lies the Vilcabamba Stone Complex, a site that whispers of ancient kings, secret refuges, and a culture that managed to endure in isolation long after much of its empire had succumbed to conquest. Unlike the monumental urban centers of the Inca heartland, Vilcabamba presents a different kind of mystery, one that is both tangible in its stone constructions and elusive in the stories its walls seem to guard. Approaching the complex, one is immediately struck by the terrain itself. The Andes rise sharply, their slopes carved by rivers and deep ravines, creating natural fortifications that would have been both a sanctuary and a challenge for its inhabitants. The stone terraces, stairways, and walls seem to grow organically from the mountainsides, as if the landscape and human ingenuity coalesced into a single, enduring form. In many ways, Vilcabamba appears less a city and more a labyrinth of stone, a network of interconnected structures designed to protect, conceal, and sustain life at high altitude. The craftsmanship is meticulous. Carefully fitted stones, terraces engineered to control erosion, and pathways that both connect and obscure the heart of the complex. Every element seems intentional, raising questions about the people who shaped this landscape and their knowledge of engineering, strategy, and environment. Historical records provide tantalizing hints about Vilcabamba's significance. After the Spanish conquest of Cusco in the 16th century, Vilcabamba became the last stronghold of the Inca resistance, the place where the empire's rulers retreated and maintained sovereignty for decades. Its remoteness, while protective, also obscured it from both contemporary chroniclers and modern archaeologists, leaving much of its story to survive in fragmented accounts and oral traditions. Could the isolation of Vilcabamba have been deliberate, a conscious choice to preserve culture, knowledge, and leadership away from the encroaching forces of conquest? And if so, what strategies, both architectural and social, did its inhabitants employ to sustain life under such constrained and precarious conditions? The layout of the Vilcabamba complex suggests sophisticated urban planning. Terraces for agriculture rise above and below clusters of stone buildings, implying an intricate understanding of both hydrology and microclimates. The inhabitants exploited the steep terrain to maximize arable land, while simultaneously creating natural defenses against invaders. Certain structures are carefully aligned along ridgelines or oriented toward prominent peaks and valleys. Were these alignments purely functional, or did they hold symbolic or ritual significance as well, reflecting a worldview in which mountains, rivers, and stars were integral to governance and spiritual practice? Some researchers argue that these alignments may correspond with solar and lunar cycles, suggesting a celestial knowledge that guided agricultural, ceremonial, or administrative decisions, a reminder that Vilcabamba was not merely a military retreat, but a living, evolving center of culture and ritual. Artifacts recovered from Vilcabamba, though limited, reveal a people skilled in both craft and trade. Pottery, textiles, and stone tools suggest daily life that combined practicality with artistry, while remnants of ceremonial objects hint at a spiritual depth intertwined with governance. How much of the Inca sacred tradition was preserved in Vilcabamba during its isolation? Were priests and leaders guardians of knowledge that had been lost elsewhere? And might the complex itself have served as a repository for codices, oral histories, or other records now vanished, concealing insights into the broader Inca civilization and its worldview? Beyond its functional and ceremonial aspects, Vilcabamba presents enigmas that invite deeper speculation. Its labyrinthine stone pathways and staircases suggest deliberate concealment, designed to confound visitors unfamiliar with the terrain. Could these designs have been intended to protect not only inhabitants but also treasures, strategic resources, or knowledge? Stories of hidden caches, secret chambers, and unrecorded tombs persist among local traditions, hinting at secrets yet to be uncovered by archaeology. Even the dense vegetation and frequent cloud cover serve as natural camouflage, leaving sections of the complex inaccessible and largely unexplored, creating a modern-day mystery that mirrors the isolation once intended by its builders. The broader landscape of Vilcabamba further amplifies its mystery. Surrounding valleys, rivers, and high-altitude peaks are dotted with smaller settlements and ceremonial spaces, suggesting a networked society that extended beyond the main stone complex. How were these outlying communities connected, economically, politically, spiritually, to the heart of Vilcabamba? Did these networks survive the pressures of conquest and environmental change, maintaining a lifeline of continuity in a rapidly transforming world? And how much of this system remains hidden, buried beneath centuries of sediment, forest growth, or erosion, waiting for the patient work of discovery to bring it to light? Environmental conditions also present their own puzzles. Vilcabamba's location, while defensible, posed significant challenges. Steep slopes, limited arable land, and unpredictable weather would have required careful resource management. Terraces, irrigation channels, and storage facilities indicate that the inhabitants developed strategies to manage these constraints. Yet much about their methods remains obscure. Did they rely solely on local knowledge, Or might innovations and techniques from other Inca regions, or even distant cultures, have influenced their agricultural and architectural practices? The scarcity of comprehensive archaeological surveys leaves these questions open, reinforcing the sense of a civilization partially hidden, not only by geography, but by the passage of time itself. The human dimension of Vilcabamba is equally compelling. This was the final refuge of Inca rulers resisting the Spanish, a stage where leadership, loyalty, and resilience were tested under extraordinary circumstances. Chronicles describe prolonged sieges, negotiations, and flights through the mountains, all underscoring the interplay of strategy, survival, and adaptation. Yet, despite these historical references, so much remains conjectural. Where did these leaders and their families reside within the complex? How were decisions made, and how was knowledge transmitted in such an isolated and precarious setting? And perhaps most intriguingly, what cultural practices were preserved or transformed here in ways that would influence later generations, both documented and oral? Fringe theories, while speculative, invite us to imagine Vilcabamba as more than a defensive stronghold. Could it have functioned as a secret school of astronomical or spiritual knowledge, its terraces and alignments serving as instruments for observation and ritual? Might the layout of the complex encode maps, mathematical principles, or calendrical systems that modern researchers have yet to decode? And if hidden chambers or records exist, what might they reveal about Inca governance, religion, and survival strategies in the final decades of empire? While these ideas remain unproven, they highlight the continuing allure of Vilcabamba, a place where history, legend, and landscape intertwine in ways that challenge conventional understanding. As the sun dips behind jagged peaks, casting long shadows across stone terraces and staircases, Vilcabamba exudes a quiet, almost reverent mystery. Its walls, stairs, and terraces are more than physical remnants. They are markers of human resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring desire to preserve culture in the face of conquest and uncertainty. Standing amidst the ruins, one cannot help but reflect on the lives of those who built, lived, and perhaps even hid knowledge here. What remains unseen, buried beneath terraces or obscured by vegetation? What stories, artifacts, or inscriptions await discovery, capable of reshaping our understanding of the last chapters of the Inca civilization? Vilcabamba's stones invite contemplation. They remind us that history is not always a linear narrative, but a mosaic of survival, adaptation, and ingenuity, often preserved in places difficult to access and easy to overlook. And as modern explorers and archaeologists continue to study the site with careful excavation, remote sensing, and archival research, the complex remains a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of a civilization that sought to endure, adapt, and protect its legacy. What secrets remain hidden within its terraces, staircases, and chambers? And how much of its story will continue to challenge, inspire, and captivate those who venture into these high Andean valleys? From the misty Andean heights of Vilcabamba, where stone terraces blend seamlessly with the rugged landscape, we now journey across the Mediterranean Sea to the island of Sardinia. Here, scattered across rolling hills, limestone ridges, and sun-warmed plains, lie the giants' graves, minor sites, silent testaments to a civilization that thrived in Bronze Age Sardinia. Unlike the monumental megalithic structures of the larger neuralgic complexes, these minor sites are quieter, less conspicuous, yet no less enigmatic. Their stones rise from the earth with a dignity that speaks to the hands that placed them, hands guided by ritual, tradition, and a worldview deeply intertwined with the land itself. The first impression of these minor graves is their understated presence. Rather than towering structures, they are elongated stone mounds, flanked by upright slabs, their forms evoking a sense of both reverence and mystery. Some resemble gentle ridges, Others are punctuated by carved slabs or small chambers, often aligned along natural features of the landscape. Each site seems deliberately chosen: a gentle slope, a vantage point over nearby valleys, or proximity to a water source. Could these choices reflect practical considerations, spiritual symbolism, or a careful blending of the two? In examining these sites, one begins to sense that their placement, orientation, and construction were all deliberate, communicating meanings now largely lost to time. Archaeological research dates many of these minor graves to between 1800 and 1200 BC, within the broader context of the Nuragic civilization. Yet, despite their age, much remains uncertain. Excavations reveal human burials, sometimes accompanied by pottery, bronze tools, and personal ornaments. These artifacts indicate social differentiation and ritual practice, suggesting that the individuals interred here held significance within their communities. But the grave's architecture raises questions that simple burials cannot answer. Why the elongated shape? What prompted the careful alignment of slabs, sometimes in arcs or semicircles around a central chamber? And why do these structures recur across the island, often in remote or difficult-to-access locations, hinting at a network of sacred or culturally linked spaces? The term giant's graves itself evokes both curiosity and mystery. Local folklore attributes these constructions to beings of enormous stature, a poetic interpretation that arose centuries after the stones were set in place. While no evidence supports the presence of literal giants, the sheer scale of some slabs, some weighing several tons, does suggest a remarkable command of engineering and collective labor. How did these Bronze Age communities transport and erect such massive stones without the machinery of later civilizations? And does the monumental effort invested in these minor sites hint at symbolic significance beyond the mere act of burial? The layout of many minor graves is particularly compelling. Unlike the larger, more formal Nuragic temples or towers, these graves often integrate irregular terrain into their design. Stones are sometimes positioned to mirror surrounding hills, valleys, or celestial events. Could these orientations have marked solstices, lunar phases, or other astronomical phenomena? If so, what knowledge did these communities possess about the movements of the sun, moon, and stars? The repetition of these forms across the island suggests a shared cultural or religious understanding, yet the subtle variations at each site reflect local adaptation, personal or clan significance, or even regional hierarchies. Human remains provide additional layers of intrigue. Analysis shows that burials were often collective, encompassing multiple individuals over time. Some graves include primary burials, others secondary interments, raising questions about ritual practice, social hierarchy, and the continuity of memory. Did these minor sites serve as communal cemeteries for extended families, small clans, or larger social networks? How were decisions made about who was interred, and why were certain individuals memorialized with elaborate stone constructions while others received simpler rites? The presence of grave goods, including finely crafted tools, jewelry, and ceremonial items, hints at beliefs in an afterlife or the importance of status even beyond death, yet the precise nature of these beliefs remains elusive. Environmental and geographical factors further complicate our understanding. Many minor graves occupy rugged terrain, perched on hillsides or tucked into valleys, locations that today seem remote yet would have been integral to the communities that built them. Was this placement chosen for visibility, protection, or spiritual resonance with the landscape? Did the surrounding environment, soil composition, water availability, or proximity to other settlements influence their construction, or were symbolic and ritual considerations paramount? And what does this interplay of geography and architecture tell us about the worldview of the Nuragic peoples, who managed to integrate human habitation, ritual spaces, and the natural world with remarkable sophistication. Speculative theories abound, though none can be confirmed. Some researchers have suggested that minor giants' graves functioned as local ceremonial hubs, complementing larger neuralgic centers where political or regional authority was centralized. Others propose that they may have served as markers of territorial boundaries, pilgrimage points, or loci of spiritual energy, connecting communities across Sardinia through shared ritual practice. Could certain alignments encode calendrical information, astronomical observations, or genealogical memory? And if so, what knowledge may remain hidden within the stones, waiting for careful excavation, mapping, and interpretation? The stylistic variation among minor sites adds to their enigmatic quality. While many share a general elongated shape, the number and arrangement of slabs, chamber orientation, and associated artifacts differ widely. Some appear almost architectural, resembling miniature temples or ritual enclosures, while others are more modest, emphasizing function over form. This diversity prompts reflection. Was there a hierarchy of sacredness, with some graves reserved for elite families and others for broader communal use? Or does the variation reflect local traditions, resource availability, or evolving practices over centuries? For those who visit these sites today, the experience is both humbling and provocative. Standing amidst weathered stones, partially overgrown by wild grasses, one senses continuity across millennia, the same hills, wind patterns, and shifting light that greeted the original builders. The graves silently invite questions rather than offering answers about social structure, ritual practice, technological capability, and the ways Bronze Age communities navigated life, death, and memory. And yet, despite extensive study, these minor sites continue to withhold their full story, leaving gaps that modern archaeology can illuminate only gradually. In reflecting on the Sardinian giants' graves, minor sites, we are reminded that even smaller constructions can carry immense cultural weight. Their stones are markers of labor, belief, and identity, crafted by communities who, in their own time, faced the same questions of mortality, purpose, and legacy that we do today. Could there still be undiscovered graves or chambers hidden beneath centuries of sediment? Are there symbolic carvings or arrangements yet to be interpreted? And how might a deeper understanding of these minor sites reshape our view of the neuralgic civilization, revealing subtler patterns of ritual, hierarchy, and knowledge that complement the more monumental structures we tend to celebrate? As the Mediterranean sun sets over Sardinia's hills, casting long shadows across ancient stones, these minor graves whisper across time. They are not merely monuments to the dead. They are conduits to a lost worldview, echoing the lives, beliefs, and ingenuity of a people whose memory survives in enduring stone. And as modern explorers, archaeologists, and historians continue to study these enigmatic sites, we are left with an invitation to look closely, think deeply, and wonder about the knowledge, experiences, and mysteries that remain, hidden yet tangible, within the stones of Sardinia's Bronze Age landscape. From the sun-warmed hills of Sardinia, where ancient stone markers quietly preserve the memory of Bronze Age communities, our journey returns to the highlands of South America, to a landscape where the horizon meets clouds in a haze of mystery and legend. Here, in the Andean plateau east of Lima, Peru, stretches the Marcahuasi stone formations, a vast expanse of granite sculptures rising dramatically from the rugged terrain. The air is thin at nearly 4,000 meters above sea level, and the wind sculpts a constant whisper over the stone, carrying both a chill and a sense of timelessness. Unlike burial sites or defensive complexes, Marcahuasi presents a puzzle of a different kind. A landscape where nature and human craft seem to converge in forms that inspire wonder, curiosity, and sometimes unease. At first glance, the formations appear as colossal, weathered monoliths, each carved by the patient hands of time, or perhaps by human intervention. From certain angles, the stones take on uncanny shapes. Human faces, animal forms, and abstract geometries emerge from rough granite surfaces, as if the rocks themselves are frozen expressions of thought. The imagination is drawn into these forms, yet the careful observer notices subtle patterns, alignments along ridgelines, terraces that suggest deliberate pathways, and clusters that hint at intentional arrangement. Here, in this otherworldly terrain, one cannot help but ask, are these purely natural formations shaped by millennia of erosion? Or is there evidence of human agency guiding the sculpting of these monoliths? And if humans were involved, what purpose did such monumental efforts serve? Archaeological study of Marcahuasi is limited, yet tantalizing. Early explorers and ethnographers noted local legends connecting the plateau to ritual and spiritual activity, suggesting that it was regarded as a sacred site long before formal surveys began. Some researchers argue that the stone shapes served as symbolic representations of deities or ancestors, possibly as part of ceremonial rites or as markers of cosmic significance. Others propose that the formations were intended as teaching tools or astronomical instruments, using the movement of shadows and light across the stones to track solar and lunar cycles, or even to communicate calendars and agricultural knowledge. The precision of some alignments and the density of certain stone clusters lend credence to these hypotheses, but the lack of definitive inscriptions or artifacts leaves the question unresolved. What sets Marcahuasi apart from other Andean sites is the scale and diversity of its formations. Granite outcrops rise from gentle slopes to jagged peaks, ranging from a few meters in height to colossal monoliths that tower over the landscape. Some formations appear anthropomorphic, their features suggesting eyes, mouths, and profiles, while others resemble animals, llamas, birds, or serpentine forms. One cannot ignore the sense of intentionality in certain clusters, as if the arrangement of these stones was guided by a cultural memory now obscured by centuries of wind, frost, and geological processes. And yet, amidst the interpretive intrigue, science reminds us that erosion, jointing, and frost wedging naturally produce surprising shapes, blurring the boundary between natural formation and human artistry. Ethnographic accounts further enrich the mystery. Local inhabitants tell stories of ceremonies performed atop the plateau, of healing rituals and pilgrimages that persisted for generations. These oral histories connect the stones to spiritual practice, suggesting that even if the forms are primarily natural, the humans who encountered them imbued them with meaning. In this way, Marcahuasi becomes more than granite. It transforms into a living landscape of perception and memory, where the human mind and the natural world meet in an intricate dialogue. Could it be that the interplay of imagination and interpretation is precisely the point? That the plateau was designed not only to inspire awe, but to serve as a locus for reflection, meditation, and cosmic alignment? Geologically, the formations are impressive. Granite, resistant and enduring, has withstood countless centuries of wind, rain, frost, and seismic activity. Yet it is precisely this durability that allows patterns to emerge. Jointing, fractures, and exfoliation combine to produce unexpected shapes. Scholars have debated whether prehistoric humans could have manipulated the stones, chipping, carving, or repositioning them to enhance natural forms. If so, the effort would have required an extraordinary level of organization, coordination, and understanding of materials. Were these proto-sculptors guided by ritual, aesthetic sensibility, or practical utility, such as marking sacred spaces or defining territorial boundaries? And if intervention occurred, what does it reveal about the society that undertook such work in such a remote and challenging environment? The mystery deepens when considering the spatial arrangement of the formations. Some researchers note apparent patterns along cardinal directions or sightlines connecting distant monoliths. Could these alignments encode knowledge of celestial movements, seasonal cycles, or even geographic markers lost to time? Others observe that the shapes, when viewed from specific vantage points, appear almost narrative, telling stories that only the observant eye or culturally informed participant could interpret. Were these stories symbolic, instructive, or ceremonial? Or might they have functioned as mnemonic devices, helping inhabitants preserve collective memory in a landscape that could otherwise swallow history? One of the most enigmatic aspects of Marcahuasi is the tension between permanence and ephemerality. The granite endures, yet its forms are eroded, weathered, and often ambiguous. Shadows stretch and shift with the sun, revealing new features at different times of day and year. Mist rises from the surrounding valleys, concealing and revealing the stones in a constant play of light and form. Could the ancient observers have understood and intentionally utilized these atmospheric effects, creating a dynamic interaction between landscape, weather, and perception? And what might this reveal about their conceptualization of nature, art, and the divine? Fringe theories abound, though they remain speculative. Some enthusiasts have suggested that Marcahuasi is a repository of lost knowledge, perhaps linked to ancient civilizations now vanished from the historical record. Others propose that the plateau served as a center for esoteric practice or spiritual enlightenment, a kind of open-air sanctuary for meditation and cosmic observation. While evidence for these claims is limited, the enduring fascination with the site reflects the universal human desire to find meaning in monumental, mysterious landscapes. Even if such theories are never verified, they underscore the sense of wonder and the compelling draw of a place where human perception and natural grandeur intersect. Artifacts associated with Marcahuasi are rare but revealing. Pottery shards, stone tools, and occasional petroglyphs indicate that humans did occupy or traverse the plateau. The limited material culture raises questions about the nature and duration of settlement. Were the plateau's inhabitants permanent residents, seasonal ritualists, or itinerant travelers? And how did they sustain themselves in an environment so high, harsh, and exposed? These practical considerations intertwine with the more mystical aspects of Marcahuasi, illustrating that human interaction with the landscape was at once functional, social, and spiritual. As twilight falls over the plateau, the stones take on an almost spectral quality. Faces seem to emerge from the granite, shadows stretch across terraces, and the wind carries the faint echo of a world long vanished. One cannot help but ponder, how much of Marcahuasi's mystery is natural, and how much was shaped by human hands, intentions, and imagination? Are there still hidden carvings, undiscovered pathways, or alignments awaiting discovery? And if so, what stories, insights, or knowledge might they hold about the people who first encountered these stones, saw meaning in their shapes, and inscribed their presence upon a landscape that continues to awe and confound? Marcahuasi invites reflection not just on what is seen, but on the relationship between humans and the landscapes they inhabit. It challenges us to consider perception, interpretation, and the layers of time that transform natural formations into cultural monuments. Standing among these ancient stones, one is acutely aware of the interplay between geology, human creativity, and myth, a dialogue stretching across millennia. The plateau, enduring yet enigmatic, preserves the echoes of thought, ritual, and labor from civilizations that remain partially obscured by time, climate, and human memory. In contemplating Marcahuasi, we are left with questions rather than conclusions. Were the formations primarily natural, human-made, or a collaboration between the two? How did the ancients conceptualize their place within this high-altitude environment, and how did the stones serve as markers of cosmology, identity, or power? And ultimately, how much of the plateau's story remains hidden, obscured by erosion, vegetation, or simply the passage of centuries? Marcahuasi continues to challenge the observer to balance skepticism with wonder, fact with possibility, and to acknowledge that some mysteries endure precisely because they defy easy explanation. From the high-altitude silence of Marcahuasi, our journey descends once more to the Atlantic edge, where the westernmost reaches of Europe meet the restless sea. Here, perched on the rugged cliffs of Inishmore, the largest of the Aran Islands off Ireland's west coast, stands Dun Aengus, a prehistoric stone fort whose massive walls cling to the cliffs like a sentinel over the endless waves below. The wind carries a briny tang, and the roar of the Atlantic crashes against limestone cliffs, emphasizing the fort's isolation. From above, its outline appears almost ceremonial, concentric arcs of stone rising in terraces, enclosing a central plateau, as if the landscape itself were sculpted for a purpose now largely forgotten. The fort's construction, primarily of limestone quarried nearby, is remarkable for its scale and precision. Walls up to 5 meters thick curve in seemingly deliberate shapes, conforming to the cliff edges in ways that suggest both practical and symbolic intent. The outermost walls follow the natural contours of the land, protecting what is now interpreted as the inner fort. Yet despite the imposing defenses, there is little evidence of long-term habitation: hearths, small traces of tools, and minimal domestic debris. This raises immediate questions. Was Dun Aengus a fortress, a ceremonial center, or a symbolic monument marking power and territory? And if the latter, who were the people capable of moving such massive stones in such a remote and exposed location? Dating of the fort places its earliest construction in the Late Bronze Age, around 1100 to 800 BC, though subsequent additions suggest continued use and modification over several centuries. These walls, now weathered by millennia of salt-laden winds and relentless erosion, still stand as a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Scholars have long debated the purpose of Dun Aengus. Its sheer scale and challenging location could imply defensive motives, yet the lack of evidence for sustained occupation complicates this interpretation. Could it have been a ceremonial stronghold, a gathering place for tribes of the Aran Islands, or perhaps a center of observation and ritual overlooking the tumultuous Atlantic waters? One of the most captivating aspects of Dun Aengus is the interplay between human design and natural environment. From the fort's central plateau, one can gaze across the Atlantic and perceive the subtle shifts of light and shadow across the walls. The outer fortifications, following cliff edges, create terraces that seem designed to emphasize visibility, both for those approaching the island and for inhabitants gazing seaward. Was this visibility merely practical, a means to monitor maritime routes and potential threats? Or did the builders intend something more symbolic, a dialogue with the horizon, sun, and moon, marking time and seasons in a way now lost to memory? Some researchers suggest that the fort's orientation and alignment may correlate with solstices or other celestial events, echoing a pattern found in megalithic sites across Europe. Archaeological exploration has revealed further enigmas. Excavations have uncovered fragments of pottery, stone tools, and the occasional ornament, but little that provides a definitive narrative of daily life within the fort. The scarcity of domestic evidence contrasts sharply with the scale of the construction, implying that Dun Aengus may have been used intermittently or reserved for particular ceremonial occasions. Could the fort have been a site of initiation, ritual, or pilgrimage? And if so, what beliefs or practices guided the movement of people and the shaping of stone in this windswept landscape? The fort's location at the cliff edge introduces another dimension of mystery. The outer walls, in some sections, terminate abruptly at sheer drops, creating dramatic terraces that overlook the Atlantic abyss. Some scholars interpret these cliffs as natural deterrents, enhancing the fort's defensibility. Yet there is a haunting aesthetic to the placement. From a distance, the fort appears as if suspended between land and sea, a threshold between human endeavor and natural force. Could this interplay of risk, beauty, and scale have held spiritual significance for its builders, symbolizing control over nature or communion with the unseen powers they believed governed their world? Fringe theories, while speculative, add another layer to Dun Aengus's allure. Some enthusiasts suggest the fort served as a prehistoric observatory, capable of tracking celestial events with surprising accuracy. Others propose that its layout encodes symbolic narratives, connecting human habitation with cosmology, landscape, and ancestral memory. While such theories remain unproven, they highlight a universal aspect of human ingenuity: the desire to embed meaning into monumental construction. Dun Aengus is more than stone. It is a conversation between human thought, natural form, and the enduring mystery of time. In addition to its structural enigma, local legend and folklore enrich the fort's mystique. The site is named after Aengus, a figure from Irish mythology often associated with love, youth, and poetic inspiration. Stories persist of magical or ritual significance. Ancient rites performed atop the terraces, spiritual pilgrimages by the living, and echoes of ancestors whose presence is said to linger in the wind. While modern archaeology must tread carefully between myth and evidence, these oral traditions underscore the cultural significance of Dun Aengus, emphasizing its role not merely as a physical construction, but as a locus of imagination, memory, and human aspiration. Geologically, the fort is both anchored and threatened by its environment. The limestone cliffs are susceptible to erosion, frost fracturing, and the relentless impact of Atlantic storms. Over millennia, walls have crumbled, terraces have collapsed, and the edges of the cliffs have receded. Yet the fort's essential form endures, a testament to both the resilience of the builders and the fortitude of the rock itself. This dynamic tension between permanence and impermanence mirrors the broader enigma of Dun Aengus. What survives is monumental, but much remains hidden, altered, or lost to time. The fort also challenges modern perceptions of scale and labor. Moving massive limestone blocks in a remote and exposed environment, without the benefit of wheeled transport or modern machinery, required exceptional ingenuity and organization. Could small communities have orchestrated such work over decades, or was it the product of larger regional coordination? The logistical feat alone is impressive, suggesting sophisticated knowledge of engineering, materials, and communal effort. And yet, the mystery deepens. Why invest so much labor in a site with minimal evidence of habitation? Was it a statement of power, a sacred undertaking, or an artistic expression of human mastery over landscape? As twilight approaches, the wind shifts, carrying the scent of the ocean and the distant cry of seabirds. Shadows stretch across the terraces, emphasizing the contours of walls and gaps, creating forms that seem alive with history. The fort, perched at the edge of the world, reminds us that the ancient builders grappled with the same questions that continue to fascinate modern observers. How do humans define themselves in relation to the natural world? How do beliefs, ritual, and aesthetics intertwine with practical concerns like defense, agriculture, and survival? And how much of what we see today represents intention? And how much is the work of time itself shaping perception? Dun Aengus, like Marcahuasi before it, embodies a dialogue between nature and humanity, permanence and decay, function and mystery. Its walls, terraces, and cliffside terraces are simultaneously protective and symbolic, practical and enigmatic. The fort's enduring presence invites reflection on the continuity of human curiosity, the universal desire to leave a mark, and the ways in which monumental landscapes can encapsulate both knowledge and uncertainty. Standing atop the fort today, one cannot escape the impression that Dun Aengus was more than stone and labor. it was a deliberate engagement with the environment, a manifestation of thought, ritual, and collective identity. Its builders sought to impress, protect, and inspire. They carved and arranged stone in ways that still speak to us across the centuries. And yet, much remains unanswered. How exactly was the fort used? What rituals, decisions, or beliefs guided its construction? And are there stories, alignments, or purposes yet undiscovered, waiting in terraces, walls, or the stones themselves to reveal their secrets to those willing to observe with patience and curiosity? The clifftop fort, gazing unflinchingly at the Atlantic expanse, stands as a reminder that human history is not solely written in texts or records, but etched into landscapes, stones, and the imagination. Aengus challenges us to consider the intricate relationship between people and place, between intention and interpretation, and between the visible and the hidden. Even now, it invites exploration, reflection, and wonder, a place where mystery endures because it continues to speak to the questions, longings, and aspirations of every visitor who stands among its stones, feeling both the permanence of the past and the ephemeral touch of time. From the wind-lashed cliffs of Inishmore and the ancient fortifications of Aengus, our journey turns once again to South America, descending into the highlands of southern Peru. Here, the landscape opens into a plateau of golden grass, interspersed with rocky outcrops and shadowed valleys, where the remnants of a civilization long past rise quietly from the earth. Among these vestiges are the Cutimbo Chullpas, towering funerary towers that have endured centuries of wind, frost, and human curiosity, overlooking the valley below like silent guardians of memory. The first sight of the site is striking. Cylindrical and sometimes square stone towers, constructed with meticulous care from local volcanic rock, punctuate the highland horizon. Some rise to over 10 meters, their walls tapering slightly as they reach the sky. The stones, irregular yet fitted with remarkable precision, form chambers within, where ancient inhabitants placed the remains of their deceased, often accompanied by grave goods. From a distance, the Chullpas appear almost sculptural, blending architectural sophistication with a raw, natural elegance that seems to echo the undulating landscape itself. Archaeologists date the construction of these towers to the late pre-Columbian period, roughly between 1000 and 1450 AD, although some may be older. They are attributed primarily to the Kala people, who flourished in this region of the Lake Titicaca highlands, yet their exact cultural context remains partially obscured by time. Each Chullpa served as a funerary monument, a marker of lineage, status, and ritual significance. Some contained single burials, while others housed multiple individuals, suggesting the tower's role as both family crypt and communal monument. Yet despite centuries of study, many questions remain. Why these specific designs, and what do they reveal about Kala beliefs concerning death, ancestry, and the cosmos? The construction techniques of the Cutimbo Chullpas are impressive. Stones were shaped and stacked without mortar, relying on precise fitting to ensure stability and durability. Some towers feature doors, oriented in specific directions, often facing east toward the rising sun. Could these orientations have been intentional, reflecting solar worship or a symbolic connection to the cycle of life and death? Or might they have marked significant astronomical events, acting as both tomb and observatory, linking the earthly domain with the celestial? The alignment of some Chullpas with distant mountains and sacred peaks further hints at a deliberate, symbolic relationship with the surrounding landscape. Inside the towers, the chambers evoke both intimacy and grandeur. The deceased were often seated, wrapped in textiles and accompanied by pottery, tools, or personal belongings, a practice that suggests a belief in an afterlife where the dead required familiar objects. Many towers contain human remains in remarkably preserved states, partially due to the dry highland climate. These burial practices suggest a complex understanding of mortality, spirituality, and the preservation of lineage. And yet, much about the rituals remains speculative. How were these ceremonies conducted? Who oversaw them? And how did the living interact with the dead through the Chullpas over time? The Cutimbo site is remarkable not only for its architecture, but also for its density. Some areas contain dozens of Chullpas, clustered in a pattern that seems both practical and symbolic. Paths between the towers suggest deliberate design, possibly to facilitate processions or ritual movement. Could the arrangement of these towers reflect a cosmological map, a terrestrial reflection of the heavens, or a coded representation of clan relationships? Scholars continue to debate these questions, noting the similarities and differences with other Chullpa sites across the Andean highlands, yet definitive answers remain elusive. The towers themselves carry a subtle air of mystery. Weathering and erosion have softened the stone, yet traces of intricate carvings remain in some examples. Geometric patterns, symbolic motifs, or perhaps abstract depictions whose meanings are lost to time. Some researchers suggest these carvings reflect spiritual or mythological concepts, while others see them as markers of identity or status. Even the most modest Chullpas possess an elegance that conveys respect for the deceased and a sophisticated sense of architectural aesthetics. Could these towers represent not only tombs, but also visual statements of power, continuity, and cultural memory? Local legend and oral history add further layers to Cutimbo's enigma. The Kala people are said to have performed ceremonies atop and around the Chullpas, honoring ancestors, seeking guidance, and maintaining a spiritual connection to the land. Even after the Inca expansion and subsequent Spanish colonization, these towers retained a certain mystique. Some traditions describe them as portals to the spiritual world, while others suggest that strange phenomena, lights, sounds, or inexplicable occurrences, sometimes manifest near the towers. While modern science cannot verify these claims, they underscore the enduring power of place. The Chullpas do not merely exist in physical space, but in the imagination, memory, and cultural consciousness of the people who encounter them. The Chullpas' locations further invite speculation. Many towers perch on hilltops or elevated terraces, overlooking valleys, lakes, or distant mountains. This placement could serve practical purposes, visibility, territorial marking, or defense, but the symbolism is difficult to ignore. The dead, elevated above the living, appear to watch over the landscape, perhaps asserting both spiritual authority and social memory. Was this elevation purely ceremonial, or did it reflect deeper cosmological beliefs, connecting human society with the forces of earth and sky? Fringe theories surrounding the Cutimbo Chullpas are numerous, though unverified. Some suggest that these towers were aligned with astronomical phenomena beyond solar cycles, perhaps tracking planetary movements or rare celestial events. Others speculate that the Chullpas served as a form of ancient record-keeping, encoding historical or genealogical knowledge in the very arrangement of the stones. While such interpretations cannot be proven, they reflect a broader truth. Wherever humans engage with stone in a deliberate, monumental way, questions about purpose, knowledge, and intent inevitably arise. Cutimbo stands as a testament to this intersection of material, ritual, and intellectual endeavor. Despite centuries of study, many Chullpas remain largely unexplored. Some towers are partially collapsed or buried under centuries of sediment, their interiors unknown. Others are inaccessible, perched on steep cliffs or hidden among rugged highland terrain. Could these unexplored towers hold artifacts, inscriptions, or construction techniques that would illuminate aspects of Kala culture lost to time? And what stories, rituals, or knowledge might emerge if these towers were systematically studied using modern technology, ground-penetrating radar, 3D mapping, or other non-invasive methods? The mystery of Cutimbo is, in many ways, still being written by those willing to look closely, listen carefully, and interpret the subtle cues left by centuries of human activity. Standing among the Cutimbo Chullpas, one is struck by the duality of permanence and fragility. The stone towers endure, yet centuries of weather and human activity have altered them. They are monuments to death, memory, and human ingenuity, yet their precise function, full meaning, and the scope of their use remain partially hidden. How much do we understand of the lives, beliefs, and intentions of the people who built them? How did these towers shape social structure, spiritual practice, and interaction with the natural world? As dusk settles over the highland plateau, shadows stretch across the towers, highlighting their cylindrical forms and the terraces that link them. The wind carries the faint, hollow sound of emptiness, a reminder of both absence and endurance. In this quiet, the Cutimbo Chullpas assert their presence not through words, but through scale, form, and placement, a silent testimony to a civilization that understood mortality, landscape, and the enduring power of stone. And yet, as we consider the Cutimbo Chullpas, one final question remains. How much of the site's story is still hidden, either beneath stone, soil, or time itself? How many rituals, artifacts, and human experiences are locked away, awaiting discovery? The towers persist, their meaning both tangible and elusive, challenging us to balance historical evidence with imagination, and to accept that some mysteries are meant not to be solved entirely, but to inspire reflection, curiosity, and wonder. The Cutimbo Chullpas endure as guardians of memory in the highlands of Peru, monumental, silent, and enigmatic. They invite observers to contemplate human ingenuity, mortality, and the profound ways in which societies imprint themselves on the landscape. And while archaeology continues to reveal fragments of knowledge, the towers also whisper questions we cannot yet answer, reminding us that some mysteries remain because they are, in essence, eternal. From the high plains of Peru, where ancient towers gaze over windswept valleys, we return to the rugged, windswept coasts of the Outer Hebrides, where the North Atlantic crashes against jagged cliffs and rocky shores. It is here, on the Isle of Lewis, that the Dun Carloway Bruch rises in stark contrast to the natural landscape, a towering stone structure that has withstood the relentless passage of centuries, its walls still upright and imposing, a testament to human ingenuity and the mysteries of the Iron Age. Dun Carloway is no ordinary ruin. From a distance, it appears almost circular, a perfect cylinder of weathered stone, perched strategically on a gentle rise overlooking fertile plains below. The broch is built of massive, roughly hewn stones, stacked in concentric rings that taper slightly inward as they ascend, creating an almost hypnotic spiral of masonry. The scale is imposing, walls up to 5 meters thick at the base, encircling a hollow interior that once served as both dwelling and defensive bastion. Standing before it, one cannot help but sense the intention behind every stone, the centuries of labor, thought, and vision embedded in its structure. Archaeologists date Dun Carloway to the Mid-Iron Age, roughly between 100 BC and 100 AD. It is one of over 500 brochs scattered throughout Scotland, though Dun Carloway is particularly well preserved, offering a rare glimpse into a culture that built monumental structures without the benefit of metal tools in significant quantity. The broch is believed to have served multiple purposes: a residence for elite families, a defensive stronghold, and a symbol of social or political power. Yet, as with many ancient structures, its precise function remains partially speculative. Were these towers primarily practical, a response to raiding and conflict, or were they also ceremonial, acting as visible markers of identity and status? The interior of Dun Carloway is equally compelling. A narrow entrance passage leads into a central chamber, surrounded by a series of small, interconnected rooms within the thickness of the walls. These mural cells, as they are called, suggest careful planning and an understanding of spatial dynamics that is striking for the period. Inside, one can imagine families gathering, storing food, and tending to daily life, all under the protective embrace of walls that are more than 5 meters thick. The broch's design also incorporates a sophisticated approach to weight distribution, stones placed to prevent collapse, passages designed for surveillance and defense, and chambers optimized for storage and habitation. Yet, beyond the architectural achievements lies a deeper mystery. Dun Carloway, like other brochs, occupies a liminal space between practicality and symbolism. Its imposing presence, visible for miles across the Hebridean landscape, suggests that these structures were not merely functional but also communicative, statements of power, permanence, and social cohesion. Some scholars have proposed that brochs were constructed to project authority over surrounding territories, asserting dominance through scale and visibility. Could the circular form itself carry symbolic meaning, representing unity, eternity, or the cyclical nature of life and death? The location of Dun Carloway is also thought-provoking. Perched on slightly elevated ground, the broch commands a panoramic view of surrounding plains and lochs. Its position would have allowed inhabitants to monitor movements across the land, from travelers and traders to potential raiders. Yet the placement may have had spiritual or symbolic significance as well. In an era deeply attuned to natural forces, the broch may have been aligned with solar or lunar events, or situated deliberately in relation to sacred sites, burial mounds, or other prehistoric monuments. Could these structures have served as a bridge between the terrestrial and the divine, a place where the living could connect with ancestors or deities? Archaeological investigations have revealed evidence of daily life within the broch. Stone hearths, remnants of domestic activity, and fragments of pottery paint a picture of a community that balanced defensive readiness with routine existence. But beyond these tangible traces lie the unanswered questions. How was the broch governed? What social hierarchies determined access and usage? And how did these communities sustain themselves through harsh winters and unpredictable weather? The material evidence is limited, yet the structure itself suggests a culture of planning, collaboration, and long-term vision, a society capable of organizing labor, resources, and knowledge to achieve monumental goals. In addition to its practical and symbolic dimensions, Dun Carloway has inspired speculation regarding ancient technologies and lost knowledge. How did Iron Age builders transport and lift massive stones into place without cranes or pulleys as we know them today? Could there have been techniques now forgotten, passed down orally through generations, that allowed precise construction without formalized engineering education? Some theories suggest simple yet ingenious methods, ramps, levers, and carefully calculated stone placement, but certainty remains elusive. The broch embodies not only the ingenuity of its builders, but also the mysteries of human capability, challenging modern assumptions about prehistoric societies. Local folklore adds yet another layer to the intrigue. Stories of spirits, spectral guardians, and uncanny events circulate in the Hebrides, connecting the broch to a landscape rich in legend. While modern archaeology seeks empirical explanations, these oral traditions reflect the enduring psychological and cultural impact of such structures. They serve as reminders that human interaction with monumental architecture is not merely physical, but emotional and symbolic. Could Dun Carloway, in its silent stone presence, still exert influence over the imagination of those who approach it, maintaining a link between past and present that is as much psychological as historical? Fringe theories, though unproven, explore even more speculative dimensions. Some suggest that brochs were used for astronomical observations, aligning with certain solar or lunar events to mark seasonal changes or ritual occasions. Others propose that the circular interior may have served acoustic purposes, amplifying sound for ceremonial purposes, or even functioning as early observatories of a type that has yet to be fully understood. While evidence remains circumstantial, these interpretations underscore the multi-layered potential of Dun Carloway, a place that simultaneously embodies domestic life, defensive strategy, social symbolism, and perhaps spiritual or cosmological understanding. The Broca's endurance is a testament to both the resilience of its construction and the mysteries it continues to hold. Standing among its thick walls, one can sense the countless generations that have passed, the quiet continuity of place, and the persistent questions that remain unanswered. How did the people of Dun Carloway interact with neighboring communities? Were these structures symbols of fear, respect, or alliance? And what prompted the eventual decline of Broke building in the region? Was it cultural evolution, external invasion, or environmental pressures? The stones themselves, immovable and ancient, keep their secrets silently. Walking through the ruins, the interplay of light and shadow draws attention to the meticulous craftsmanship. Stones fitted without mortar, some bearing subtle markings, reveal both practical skill and an aesthetic sensibility that may reflect deeper cultural meaning. Could these markings represent clan identity, spiritual motifs, or even mnemonic devices for transmitting knowledge? And what rituals, daily, seasonal, or funerary, occurred within these walls, shaping the lives of those who once called the Broche home? Dun Carloway also reminds us that monuments are not static. Over centuries, natural forces, human activity, and time have altered the Broche. Stones have shifted, passages have collapsed, yet the overall structure remains a powerful presence, demonstrating both the foresight of its builders and the fragility of human creations. Each visitor interprets it anew, adding a contemporary layer to its centuries-old story. How much of the Broke's original purpose can we ever truly recover, and how much will always remain beyond our grasp, locked in the silent logic of stone and landscape? As the Atlantic wind sweeps across the Isle of Lewis, the Broche stands resolute, a circular sentinel against sky and sea. Its walls frame vistas of rugged hills and distant lochs, connecting human achievement with natural grandeur. In its silence, Dun Carloway challenges us to reconcile what we can measure with what we can only imagine, reminding us that the past is never fully accessible, yet its traces shape our understanding of human creativity, resilience, and mystery. And so, as we stand on the threshold of this ancient structure, contemplating the labor, vision, and social complexity it embodies, we are left with a question that has echoed across millennia. How did the people of Dun Carloway envision their world, and how much of that vision is encoded in the stones that still endure today? How much knowledge, ritual, and social practice lies hidden, waiting to be rediscovered by those who approach with curiosity, care, and patience? The Broche persists, both monument and mystery, inviting us to ponder the enduring relationship between humanity, landscape, and the passage of time. In this way, Dun Carloway serves as a bridge across ages, a physical testament to Iron Age ingenuity and a philosophical invitation to wonder. Its walls are a dialogue between past and present, where empirical observation meets speculation, and history intertwines with imagination. And while modern study can illuminate aspects of construction, use, and context, the full story, like the wind that sweeps across Lewis, remains intangible, experienced rather than fully known. The mystery of Dun Carloway is not in what is missing, but in what persists. Its silent assertion of human presence, its defiance of time, and its capacity to inspire awe, inquiry, and reflection. Even in ruins, it asks us to consider the ingenuity of our ancestors, the complexities of ancient societies, and the enduring power of stone as both tool and symbol. And as we move forward in our exploration of ancient mysteries, The brooch stands as a reminder. Some enigmas are not meant to be solved completely, but to be experienced, contemplated, and preserved in human memory, always inviting the next question, the next insight, the next journey into the unknown. From the windswept cliffs and rugged stone towers of the Outer Hebrides, our journey now carries us across continents and oceans into the lush lowlands of Veracruz, Mexico, where the sun beats down on a landscape shaped by centuries of human endeavor and natural forces alike. Hidden amid the gentle undulations of the fertile plains, the ancient site of Cempoala emerges, a place where the past whispers through the patterns of stone and where the deliberate arrangements of circles invite both study and speculation. Here, among the remains of pre-Hispanic architecture and the echoes of Mesoamerican civilization, the stone circles of Cempoala stand as both markers of cultural sophistication and enduring enigmas. Approaching Cempoala, the first impression is one of subtlety rather than grandeur. Unlike monumental pyramids that rise boldly against the skyline, these stone circles are low, earth-toned formations that demand careful observation. Each circle, composed of carefully placed stones, varies in size, some spanning several meters in diameter, others modest and intimate. Their smooth, weathered surfaces bear the patina of centuries, their edges rounded by wind, rain, and human passage. At first glance, they may appear simple, perhaps even accidental. But as one steps closer, a pattern emerges. Alignment, spacing, and positioning suggest deliberate intent, a structured order that hints at a purpose beyond the immediately visible. Archaeologists date Cempoala's primary occupation to the post-classic period of Mesoamerican history, roughly between 900 and 1521 AD, though earlier layers of human activity indicate that this fertile region had been settled for centuries prior. Cempoala functioned as an important urban and ceremonial center of the Totonac people, serving as a hub for trade, ritual, and governance. Spanish chroniclers of the early 16th century, including Bernal Diaz del Castillo, described a complex, densely populated city with plazas, causeways, and temples. Within this context, the stone circles present an intriguing puzzle. Were they primarily ceremonial, utilitarian, or symbolic? The answer remains tantalizingly elusive. Several of the larger circles seem to occupy central positions relative to the surrounding urban layout. Some align with nearby mounds or platforms that were likely used for public gatherings, ritual performances, or astronomical observation. Could these circles have functioned as markers for solar or lunar events, tracking solstices, equinoxes, or the cyclical appearances of Venus, which held profound significance in Mesoamerican cosmology? Scholars have noted that similar circular formations elsewhere in Mesoamerica, such as those associated with the Totonac, Maya, and Olmec cultures, often correlate with celestial phenomena. Yet definitive proof remains elusive, and interpretations vary widely. Closer examination of the stones themselves reveals further mysteries. Some bear shallow carvings or incisions, subtle geometric motifs whose meaning is difficult to ascertain. Were these decorative, symbolic, or functional markings? Did they record lineage, ritual events, or cosmological concepts? Some stones appear to have been purposefully shaped to fit together with their neighbors, forming a precise circumference or aligning with cardinal directions. Others, more irregular, may have been added in successive phases, hinting at a long-term process of modification, expansion, or ritual adaptation. How much of this arrangement was planned from the beginning, and how much evolved over time? The circle's spatial distribution across Cempoala is equally compelling. They cluster in some areas, forming small groups, while in other sections they appear isolated, almost like solitary sentinels amidst the grass and stone. This variation raises questions about their function. Were clustered circles associated with communal or ritual activities, while isolated circles served individual, perhaps sacred purposes. Some researchers suggest that the placement of these circles may reflect social hierarchies, territorial boundaries, or even mnemonic devices to encode historical or spiritual knowledge. Spanish accounts add another layer to the mystery. Early chroniclers reported that Totonac leaders and priests conducted elaborate ceremonies at Cempoala, involving music, dance, offerings, and the use of symbolic objects. Could the stone circles have acted as ceremonial stages, focal points for collective participation, or loci of spiritual power? Were the stones silent witnesses to rituals that shaped both community cohesion and religious belief? Modern excavation has uncovered limited artifacts within the circles, ceramic fragments, small tools, and occasional offerings, suggesting ritual activity, but these finds are too sparse to confirm a single interpretation. Moreover, local oral traditions and contemporary cultural memory preserve echoes of ancient significance. Stories of sacred sites, ritual observances, and the spiritual power of stone persist in the communities surrounding Cempoala. Such accounts, while filtered through centuries of colonial influence and cultural transformation, provide a living connection to the past. They remind us that the stone circles were not simply physical objects, but active participants in the social, spiritual, and psychological life of the Totonac people. Could it be that their purpose extends beyond measurable function, touching aspects of human experience that resist historical or scientific reduction? The unanswered questions deepen when considering broader Mesoamerican contexts. Cempoala existed at the intersection of trade routes, political networks, and ritual landscapes. How did these stone circles relate to other contemporary structures, such as pyramids, ball courts, and causeways? Were they integrated into a larger cosmological or ceremonial schema? Could the arrangement of stones correspond to seasonal cycles, agricultural rhythms, or celestial observations essential to governance, ritual, or survival? These are questions that modern archaeology can only partially address, and they illustrate the broader challenge of interpreting ancient sites through the lens of contemporary knowledge. Scientific exploration has provided insights, yet often raises more questions than answers. Ground-penetrating radar and excavation have revealed post holes, small artifacts, and subtle soil disturbances that hint at activity within and around the circles. Yet these findings are fragmentary. The absence of written records means that much of the circle's meaning must be inferred from material culture, spatial relationships, and ethnographic analogy. Each stone is a clue, each arrangement a riddle, a silent, enduring dialogue between past and present. As the sun sets over the Veracruz plains, the Cempoala stone circles take on a transformative presence. Shadows lengthen, light refracts along their weathered surfaces, and the land itself seems to pulse with memory. One can imagine priests and leaders moving among the stones, performing rites whose details are now lost, or citizens gathering in observation of the cycles of nature, seeking guidance and meaning in the order of stone and sky. The circles invite reflection not only on what was, but on what may yet be discerned, patterns, alignments, and purposes hidden beneath centuries of erosion, vegetation, and human activity. Ultimately, the stone circles of Cempoala compel us to confront the limits of knowledge and the enduring power of mystery. They demonstrate that human ingenuity, ritual practice, and symbolic thought are ancient and deeply embedded in our species' history. They remind us that not all knowledge is written, measured, or catalogued. Some resides in subtle spatial arrangements, in stone and landscape, and in the questions we continue to ask. As we explore Cempoala, we encounter both the familiar, evidence of urban planning, ceremony, and material culture, and the unfamiliar, enigmatic circles whose full significance may remain forever beyond our grasp. And so, the stone circles stand, patient and silent, waiting for observers to tread lightly, to measure carefully, and to wonder. Each visit, each survey, each study brings new insights and new questions. Were these circles markers of time, sacred loci, symbols of social order, or coded maps of the cosmos? Perhaps all of these, or perhaps none, in ways that challenge modern comprehension. What remains certain is that their presence, carefully aligned, deliberately placed, and quietly enduring, testifies to human curiosity, spirituality, and creativity, qualities that continue to inspire wonder across millennia. In the quiet of the Veracruz Plains, one cannot help but ask, how much remains hidden beneath the earth, obscured by time yet waiting for discovery? What knowledge, ritual, or meaning lingers in the subtle geometry of stone, awaiting a moment of perception to awaken it once more? The stone circles of Cempoala are more than remnants of a distant past. They are open invitations to contemplate, to question, and to marvel at the human impulse to shape the world, to leave a mark, and to engage with the mysteries that lie beyond our full understanding. As the dense, verdant landscapes of Veracruz fade from memory, our journey takes us eastward across the Mediterranean to the sun-baked hills of Cyprus. Here, in the fertile plains and rocky slopes near the Moroni River, lies one of the most enigmatic and evocative prehistoric settlements ever uncovered, Khirokitia. Even from a distance, the site commands attention. Low, circular stone structures cluster across the landscape like silent witnesses to lives lived more than 7 millennia ago. The warm hues of Cyprus's soil and the rugged outline of distant hills create a backdrop both serene and haunting, a visual prelude to mysteries that have defied explanation for centuries. Khirokitia was first systematically excavated in the early 1930s, revealing a settlement that flourished during the Neolithic period, around 7,000 to 6,000 BC. Yet while the dates are clear, the motives and methods behind its construction remain tantalizingly opaque. Approaching the site today, one is struck by the precision of its layout. Circular houses, their walls composed of carefully stacked stones, form a dense pattern across the terraced hillsides. Some dwellings are relatively small, perhaps homes for single families, while others are more complex, containing inner partitions and stone platforms. The stones themselves, smoothed by generations of weathering, suggest intentional selection and placement, each piece contributing to the overall harmony of the settlement. Unlike the monumental architecture of later civilizations, Khirokitia's structures are modest, yet they convey a remarkable degree of sophistication. The circular design is consistent throughout, with diameters generally ranging from 3 to 6 meters. Many houses feature a single entrance, often oriented inward toward communal courtyards or clustered neighbors. Could this inward focus indicate a cultural emphasis on community cohesion, privacy, or protection? And what of the thick, carefully built walls? Were they primarily structural, defensive, or symbolic, marking a threshold between domestic life and the broader world? Excavations have revealed that these houses were not merely shelters, but centers of daily activity. Stone platforms inside the dwellings may have served as work surfaces, beds, or ritual spaces. Hearths indicate cooking and warmth, while pits and storage areas suggest a degree of agricultural planning, with preserved cereals and pulses hinting at early food management strategies. Yet beyond these practical aspects lies a deeper enigma. Khirokitia exhibits signs of remarkable social organization, apparent in its uniformity and spatial coherence. How did a Neolithic society achieve such consistency across dozens of homes without written records? How were construction techniques transmitted across generations? Was there an overarching leadership, or did communal knowledge guide each phase of development? Perhaps the most compelling feature of Khirokitia is its defensive aspect. The settlement was surrounded by a substantial stone wall, reaching up to 2.5 meters in some areas, punctuated by narrow entryways. In a world where written chronicles are absent, such fortifications speak volumes about perceived threats, social dynamics, or even ritualized boundaries. Were these walls built to fend off rival groups, predatory animals, or perhaps spiritual forces, as imagined by the inhabitants themselves? Intriguingly, evidence of careful gate construction, internal pathways, and spatial planning suggests that the wall was more than a rudimentary barricade. It was a deliberate expression of order and control within a complex human ecosystem. Khirokitia also challenges our understanding of human settlement in the Neolithic. While many contemporary communities were dispersed and loosely organized, Khirokitia demonstrates densely packed, planned habitation, indicating social complexity previously thought to emerge later. The circular houses and concentric layout may have had symbolic significance, reflecting cosmological beliefs, social hierarchy, or an early sense of urban planning. Some researchers speculate that the geometric consistency mirrors celestial patterns or the cycles of the moon and sun, hinting at an integration of practical living with ritual and astronomical observation. Could the Neolithic people of Khirokitia have encoded cosmology into their very homes, creating a built environment that was both functional and spiritually resonant? Excavations have yielded fascinating insights into daily life, but also leave profound questions unanswered. Pottery fragments, stone tools, and figurines suggest both domestic and ceremonial uses, yet the meaning of many artifacts remains elusive. Figurines of women, animals, and abstract forms hint at spiritual beliefs, fertility practices, or community rituals. But without written texts, these remain interpretations rather than certainties. Similarly, burial practices at Khirokitia provide tantalizing clues. Human remains have been found within the settlement, sometimes under the floors of houses, suggesting an intimate connection between the living and the dead. Were these interments acts of reverence, practical reuse of space, or symbolic gestures linking ancestry to home? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers suggest that the circular architecture and dense clustering of houses reflect an early understanding of energy, acoustics, or community dynamics, with structures designed to enhance social cohesion or spiritual resonance. Others propose that the settlement's layout may have facilitated defensive communication, communal ritual, or even proto-astronomical observation. Are we glimpsing a society guided by purely practical considerations, or one that merged the pragmatic with the symbolic in ways that remain largely incomprehensible? The site's geographical context adds another layer of intrigue. Perched on hills overlooking fertile plains, Khirokitia's location is strategic, offering access to water, arable land, and natural protection. Yet it is also exposed to environmental fluctuations, from harsh summer heat to winter rains. How did the inhabitants adapt to these conditions? Archaeobotanical evidence indicates early agriculture and animal domestication, but the scale and sophistication of resource management remain topics of active research. The settlement seems to balance the need for sustenance with the desire for spatial harmony, a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. Perhaps what strikes the modern observer most is the enduring silence of the stones themselves. Walk among the circular walls, trace the curves of platforms, and one can almost sense the rhythm of life that once pulsed here. Children playing in the courtyards, women preparing meals, men crafting tools, elders performing rituals. The structures exude an almost meditative calm, yet their very form provokes questions about purpose, meaning, and cultural worldview. How much of the settlement's design was influenced by spiritual beliefs? Were the circular houses a metaphor for the cycles of life, the sun, or celestial bodies? Did the walls and communal spaces encode knowledge meant to survive generations? Khirokitia also forces us to reconsider timelines of human social evolution. The complexity of the site suggests that urban-like organization, ritual life, and defensive architecture coexisted far earlier than many scholars once believed. This challenges assumptions about the pace of human innovation and compels us to look anew at the Neolithic period, not as a simple stepping stone toward later civilizations, but as a rich, intricate, and fully human epic. The people of Khirokitia were not mere foragers. They were planners, builders, ritualists, and thinkers whose choices left a tangible imprint on the landscape. Yet, despite decades of study, the mysteries remain. What guided the consistent circular design? Why was the settlement ultimately abandoned? Was it environmental change, resource depletion, social upheaval, or an enigmatic event lost to time? Archaeological evidence provides clues but no definitive answers. The walls, stones, and layouts endure as silent witnesses, inviting reflection on human creativity, resilience, and the unknown. The philosophical implications are equally compelling. Khirokitia challenges modern observers to consider the depth of human intention, the interplay of functionality and symbolism, and the ways early societies engaged with space, community, and the cosmos. The site encourages a meditation on continuity and impermanence. These stone circles and walls have endured for thousands of years, yet their full meaning slips just beyond our grasp. They exist in a space between the observable and the speculative, reminding us that history is not only what is recorded, but what is experienced, remembered, and interpreted. As the Mediterranean sun dips low over the Cypriot hills, shadows fall across the circular dwellings, elongating the walls and creating fleeting corridors of light and dark. In these shifting patterns, the site seems alive, its geometry and form interacting with the rhythms of the natural world. One can almost imagine the ancient inhabitants moving through their homes, conducting rituals, sharing meals, observing the seasons, and engaging in communal decision-making, all within the perfectly circular spaces that have fascinated generations of researchers. Khirokitia, like so many ancient mysteries, invites an ongoing dialogue. We are observers peering into the lives of people whose voices are long silenced, but whose choices remain etched into stone. Are we interpreting their structures accurately, or do we impose modern frameworks on a worldview that was profoundly different from our own? How much knowledge, ritual, and meaning has been lost, and how much might still be discerned by careful study, intuition, and imagination? Ultimately, the Khirokitia structures stand as a testament to the ingenuity, spirituality, and resilience of early human societies. They remind us that the past is never entirely gone, that the choices of long-departed communities ripple across millennia, and that the simplest circles of stone may conceal the most profound human insights. As we leave the terraced hills behind, the stone circles of Khirokitia linger in the mind, a puzzle, a meditation, a silent invitation to explore the unknown. And as with every mystery we encounter, the final answer remains tantalizingly out of reach, challenging us to continue our search, question our assumptions, and marvel at what lies hidden beneath the layers of time. As the sun climbs over the verdant plains of central Cambodia, the dense foliage parts to reveal a landscape peppered with red-hued structures that seem to rise organically from the earth. Here lies Sambor Temples, a site that, at first glance, feels both abandoned and alive, a frozen city where time appears suspended. The warm, earthy scent of the surrounding jungle mingles with the subtle fragrance of decaying leaves, a reminder that this place has endured centuries of rain, wind, and human curiosity. From a distance, the temples appear almost like a scattering of clay sentinels, their sharp, angular profiles silhouetted against the soft green of the forest canopy. Sambor Temples, originally known as Isanapura, was a thriving city during the pre-Angkorian period, roughly from the 6th to 9th centuries AD. The site is remarkable for its brick temples, many of which remain surprisingly intact despite centuries of tropical weathering. Unlike later stone constructions, these temples were built almost entirely from laterite and fired bricks, often bound with organic mortar composed of rice husks and plant extracts. The technical mastery required to produce durable bricks in such a humid climate speaks to a sophisticated understanding of material science, yet the precise methods remain partially shrouded in mystery. How did the builders ensure such longevity? Was it trial and error over generations, or knowledge passed down with almost ritualistic precision? Walking among the temples, one is immediately struck by the layout. The complex is divided into three primary groups: northern, central, and southern, each containing dozens of brick sanctuaries, sanctums, and ceremonial platforms. Despite the apparent uniformity, every temple carries subtle variations in design, proportions, and decorative motifs. The interplay between these patterns hints at an underlying system of cosmology and symbolism, one that guided not only construction, but the spiritual and social life of the inhabitants. Could each variation encode aspects of religious belief, astronomical observation, or societal hierarchy? The architectural style is uniquely pre-Angkorian, yet it also resonates with broader Southeast Asian influences. Many temples feature cruciform towers, sculpted doorways, and intricate lintels adorned with celestial and terrestrial motifs. The use of corbelled arches, decorative niches, and sculptural reliefs demonstrates an early grasp of both aesthetics and structural ingenuity. Some scholars suggest that the positioning of certain temples may have aligned with solar and lunar cycles, creating spaces that functioned as both sacred architecture and an early form of astronomical observatory. Was this alignment intentional, a sophisticated observation of celestial rhythms, or simply a practical consideration for orientation and ventilation? The brickwork itself offers another layer of mystery. Some bricks bear inscriptions, while others are stamped with symbols that remain largely undeciphered. Were these markers indicative of workshops, individual artisans, or religious significance? Why do certain bricks appear more uniform than others, suggesting centralized production or advanced quality control? And what of the organic mortar? Modern chemical analysis reveals a mixture remarkably resistant to water erosion, hinting at a depth of empirical knowledge far ahead of its time. The site's builders, it seems, had a grasp not only of form, but of material longevity, a mastery that remains partially lost to us. Among the temples, the central group stands out for its grand scale and intricate decoration. The main sanctuary here is elevated on a laterite platform, accessible via steep staircases that guide the visitor toward a sanctum at its core. Within, niches and alcoves once housed statues and relics, now lost to time or removed by collectors. The walls bear carvings depicting scenes of divine kingship, cosmic myth, and ritual practices, yet many images are partially eroded, leaving their precise meaning open to interpretation. How did these images function in the lives of the inhabitants? Were they purely symbolic, didactic, or perhaps even functional within religious rituals that we can no longer reconstruct? The northern and southern groups present a slightly different aesthetic, with smaller sanctuaries often clustered around central courtyards. Some have been interpreted as residential or administrative spaces, while others may have served ceremonial functions. The sheer density of structures raises questions about the city's population and social organization. How did the inhabitants navigate, govern, and ritualize such a space? Archaeological evidence indicates sophisticated water management systems, including reservoirs and channels, suggesting careful planning for both daily life and religious practice. Could these hydraulic features have had symbolic significance as well, representing sacred rivers or the flow of spiritual energy? One of the most compelling mysteries of Sambor Temples is its abandonment. Historical sources suggest that Isanapura fell out of use by the 9th century AD, possibly due to political shifts, environmental pressures, or changes in trade routes. Yet the exact causes remain speculative. Unlike later urban centers that leave behind abundant records or monumental inscriptions, Sambor Temples offers only tantalizing hints. Layers of sediment, collapsed walls, and displaced artifacts suggest sudden abandonment in some areas, while others show gradual decay. Did its fall coincide with broader regional upheavals, or were there more localized causes, perhaps invisible in the archaeological record? Another striking feature is the integration of temples with nature. Vines creep over brick facades, and the jungle floor rises through collapsed walls, creating a symbiosis between human construction and the environment. It is as though the site itself invites contemplation of impermanence, the delicate balance between human ambition and natural forces. Many temples appear to have been deliberately oriented toward natural landmarks, distant hills, rivers, or sacred trees. Was this purely practical, or did it embody a philosophical understanding of human life within a cosmic and ecological framework? Could the builders of Sambor Temples have seen themselves not as conquerors of the land, but as participants in a larger, harmonious design? Archaeological excavations have revealed thousands of artifacts, from small terracotta figurines to ceremonial objects and pottery fragments. Some figurines depict anthropomorphic forms, others abstract designs, hinting at a rich symbolic vocabulary. Yet the meanings of these objects remain elusive. Were they devotional offerings, educational tools, or talismans for protection? And why do certain artifacts appear repeatedly in specific locations? The patterning suggests deliberate placement, possibly tied to ritual sequences or spiritual belief, yet the lack of textual records leaves these questions suspended in uncertainty. The site's linguistic context adds further layers of mystery. Inscribed stones, some in scripts that foreshadow later Khmer writing, appear throughout the complex. The inscriptions remain partially undeciphered, hinting at a sophisticated administrative or religious system. Did these marks encode information about temple dedication, construction sequences, or spiritual doctrine? Were they intended for public knowledge, for the eyes of the elite, or for unseen spiritual audiences? The ambiguity draws us into a dialogue with the past, where every symbol is both a clue and a reminder of our interpretive limits. Walking among the temples today, one can almost hear echoes of long-lost voices, the chants of priests, the footsteps of pilgrims, the hum of a city alive with devotion and ceremony. The brick walls, softened by centuries of weathering, carry an almost palpable sense of continuity, as if the past is not wholly gone but layered beneath each stone and tile. How did the ancient inhabitants experience this sacred landscape? Did they sense the mysteries that modern researchers can only glimpse, or did the significance lie in rituals and meanings that have disappeared from collective memory? Sambor Temples, like many ancient sites, challenges conventional narratives of progress and civilization. Its architectural sophistication, social complexity, and spiritual symbolism suggest a civilization operating with knowledge and intention that is both familiar and profoundly alien to the modern observer. Was this city an experiment in urban planning, a religious pilgrimage center, or a political hub cloaked in sacred purpose? Perhaps it was all of these things, and perhaps it was something else entirely, a manifestation of human imagination and ingenuity that refuses easy categorization. The philosophical resonance of the site lingers long after one leaves. The brick temples stand as silent teachers, illustrating human resilience, creativity, and the desire to connect with forces larger than oneself. Their endurance in the face of jungle encroachment and the passage of centuries invites reflection on the impermanence of life and the persistence of human vision. They remind us that even in the absence of written records, communities can leave indelible traces of belief, structure, and culture. As the afternoon light slants across the red bricks, casting long shadows that shift with the sun. Sambor Temples appears almost alive. The geometry of its temples, the dense clustering of sacred spaces, and the subtle orientation toward natural and celestial markers suggest an intelligence both practical and symbolic. It is a landscape that rewards careful observation but resists definitive interpretation. What did the city look like in its prime? And how did its inhabitants perceive the world around them? How much knowledge remains hidden beneath collapsed walls and jungle soil, waiting to be rediscovered? Ultimately, Sambor Temples is a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring mysteries of early civilization. It invites reflection, speculation, and deep curiosity. Each brick, each temple, each fragment of carving holds a story that is partially visible but never fully known. In exploring the site, we are reminded that history is not merely a sequence of dates and events, but a layered tapestry of intention, belief, and creativity. And as with every ancient mystery we encounter, the answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, challenging us to look deeper, think critically, and wonder endlessly about the lives, thoughts, and aspirations of those who came before us. As we leave behind the brick sanctuaries of central Cambodia, our journey arcs across the vast expanse of the Pacific, where the horizon meets an endless sweep of cobalt blue. Here, on the rugged shores of Raiatea, an island in French Polynesia, we encounter Marae Taputapuaea, a site of profound spiritual resonance, etched into the volcanic landscape with a precision that speaks to centuries of ritual, navigation, and sacred practice. The first glimpse is striking. Low stone platforms rise from the ground, forming rectangles and ceremonial enclosures, their edges softened by centuries of tropical weather and the slow encroachment of greenery. A sense of stillness pervades the site, yet beneath that calm lies a deep, lingering energy, a testament to its enduring significance. Marae Taputapuaea is widely recognized as the spiritual heart of eastern Polynesia. Its origins likely stretch back over a millennium, though exact dates remain elusive. Historical records suggest the marae was fully developed by the 13th century AD, though archaeological evidence hints at earlier occupation. It is remarkable not merely for its age, but for its role as a cultural and spiritual nexus, linking distant islands through networks of trade, ritual, and navigation. Pilgrims from across the Pacific, Tahiti, the Marquesas, the Cook Islands, and beyond, would converge here to perform rites, offer tributes, and solidify alliances. How did such a remote location achieve such profound influence? Was it the strategic placement of the site, its alignment with natural and celestial landmarks, or something more intangible, perhaps a spiritual gravitas that drew people across vast ocean distances? The layout of the marae is deceptively simple, yet deeply symbolic. At its core lies a rectangular platform, carefully aligned with the cardinal directions, surrounded by smaller ceremonial enclosures and stone altars. Each stone, some weighing several tons, was transported across the island and meticulously placed, suggesting an extraordinary understanding of geometry, labor organization, and ritual significance. Unlike monumental constructions elsewhere in the world, Marae Taputapuaea is not imposing through sheer scale alone. Its power derives from spatial harmony, alignment, and the integration of human effort with natural features. Could the arrangement of these stones reflect cosmological principles, mapping the movements of the stars, the phases of the moon, or the cycles of tides that governed Polynesian life? The marae is also deeply entwined with the art of Polynesian navigation, a discipline that continues to astonish scholars today. Raiatea served as a central hub for voyaging, and Marae Taputapuaea functioned as both spiritual center and practical waypoint. Oral histories describe priests and navigators performing ceremonies here to bless journeys, interpret celestial signs, and maintain the flow of knowledge that enabled long-distance sea travel across thousands of kilometers. What secrets were passed in these sacred enclosures? How much of the navigational genius of Polynesians, often dismissed by outsiders as mystical, was carefully encoded in ritual, observation, and embodied practice? The construction of the marae reveals meticulous planning. Stone platforms were precisely leveled, and ceremonial stones arranged to demarcate sacred zones. Oral tradition emphasizes that each stone had purpose and meaning, sometimes representing ancestral lineage, spiritual authority, or celestial bodies. Some stones are carved with petroglyphs, abstract shapes, and symbols whose significance remains partially enigmatic. Are these marks purely decorative, or do they encode spiritual knowledge, navigational instructions, or cosmological maps? And what of the sacred trees and groves that once surrounded the site? Did their placement reinforce ritual or celestial alignment, or were they markers of boundaries between human and spiritual domains? Marae Taputapuaea is also notable for its role in ritualized hierarchy and governance. Chiefs, priests, and voyagers converged here to negotiate political and spiritual authority. The site is often described as a confederation of power, linking distant islands through a shared system of knowledge and ceremonial observance. How were these networks maintained? Oral histories suggest that the marae served as both a school and a court, where laws, rituals, and navigational techniques were codified and transmitted. Could this network represent one of the earliest forms of transoceanic governance, maintained not through writing but through ritualized memory and social cohesion? The spiritual dimension of Marae Taputapuaea is perhaps its most compelling feature. Polynesian belief systems emphasize the interconnection of humans, ancestors, and the divine. The marae was a point of contact between these realms, a stage upon which ritual, prayer, and celestial observation intertwined. Offerings, chants, and dances would have reverberated across the stone platforms, aligning human action with cosmic forces. Could the careful orientation of stones and platforms have amplified sound, light, or energy during ceremonies, creating experiences that transcended the ordinary and reinforced the sacred? Archaeological studies and ethnographic accounts provide glimpses into ceremonial life. Deposits of obsidian, shell, and ritual paraphernalia suggest that offerings were made not only to local deities, but to distant ancestors and navigational spirits. Stone arrangements, sometimes forming concentric circles or aligned with mountaintops, hint at deliberate cosmic observation, though the exact knowledge encoded here remains largely speculative. Did the marae serve as an astronomical observatory, a spiritual calendar, or a combination of both? Could some of the enigmatic alignments reflect knowledge of phenomena now invisible without modern instruments? The site's geopolitical significance adds another layer of intrigue. Marae Taputapuaea was not only a religious center, but also a hub for inter-island diplomacy and trade. Canoes would arrive laden with tribute, and alliances were forged and renewed through ceremonies performed here. How did the marae facilitate such far-reaching connections? Was it purely the charisma of its priests and chiefs, or did the spiritual aura of the site itself act as a unifying force across vast distances of ocean? And in a world without writing, how was knowledge, both practical and sacred, systematically preserved and transmitted? Despite its prominence, Marae Taputapuaea was not immune to decline. European contact in the 18th and 19th centuries, along with missionary influence and political upheaval, gradually diminished the site's centrality. Yet even in abandonment, the stones retain their gravitas. The site seems to pulse with the memory of ritual, travel, and negotiation. Modern efforts at preservation underscore both its cultural importance and the fragility of human legacy. Centuries of devotion and craftsmanship hang in delicate balance against the encroaching jungle and the passage of time. The philosophical implications are profound. Marae Taputapuaea forces us to confront the nature of knowledge, memory, and human connectivity. Here was a civilization capable of crossing vast oceans, establishing social and spiritual networks across thousands of kilometers, and encoding both practical and metaphysical knowledge into stone. It invites reflection on what it means to be human, to observe, to ritualize, to navigate, and to create enduring forms that transcend the individual. What did these ceremonies feel like to those who performed them under the vast, star-filled skies of the Pacific? How did the site shape the worldview of its inhabitants? And how much of that knowledge has now been lost, leaving only echoes within stone and soil? Walking across the platforms today, one can almost sense the rhythm of the past. The wind through the trees, the distant sound of waves against the reef, and the subtle hum of life among the stones evoke a world both foreign and intimately human. Every stone, every platform, every alignment tells a story, not in words, but in presence and intention. The site is at once tangible and ineffable, a space where physical construction and spiritual practice merge seamlessly. How much did the builders anticipate that their work would endure centuries of change, and what unseen forces guided their choices? Marae Taputapuaea also raises questions about human cognition and cultural memory. Without writing, without maps or charts as we understand them, Polynesians maintained intricate networks of information spanning thousands of kilometers. Did the stones of Taputapuaea function as mnemonic devices, encoding knowledge of voyages, rituals, and social rules in ways we are only beginning to comprehend? Could the spatial arrangements of the site itself have acted as a form of mental map, linking terrestrial features with celestial navigation and ancestral lineage? Even the surrounding landscape seems to participate in the mystery. The volcanic ridges, freshwater springs, and natural clearings all appear to have been integrated into the ceremonial layout. The marae does not dominate its environment but harmonizes with it, suggesting a philosophy in which human activity was designed to resonate with natural and cosmic rhythms. Was this integration intentional, a reflection of a spiritual ecology, or simply an intuitive understanding of environmental balance? Ultimately, Marae Taputapuaea is a place that resists final explanation, inviting contemplation rather than closure. Its stones, platforms, and alignments endure as silent witnesses to human ingenuity, devotion, and curiosity. Here, in the interplay of structure and landscape, of ritual and celestial observation, we encounter a civilization that navigated not only the seas but the profound depths of human connection and cosmology. As the Pacific sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the stone platforms, the marae seems to exhale centuries of accumulated energy. We are left with questions, as much as answers. What knowledge remains encoded in the stones, the landscape, and the rituals? How did this sacred hub unify distant islands, and what dimensions of human thought and spirituality did it preserve? And, perhaps most compellingly, what remains hidden beneath layers of memory, soil, and the ever-encroaching forest, waiting to reveal itself to those willing to look deeply? Marae Taputapuaea is more than a historical site. It is a living meditation on the endurance of human intention, the mystery of memory, and the power of place. It challenges us to reconsider what we know about human civilization and what we have yet to understand about the subtle, profound ways our ancestors engaged with the world around them. And as we depart, leaving the red stone platforms behind, the echo of ritual and human presence lingers, inviting continued exploration, reflection, and wonder.